Hey everybody, it is Garrett here from Classic Kiss. I just wanted to put a quick disclaimer before the podcast starts regarding the death of Ace Frehley. The episode you're about to listen to was actually recorded on October 12th. In this episode, we talk about Ace's unfortunate medical incident that he had at the end of September, and Gene's medical incident as well. Since this episode, was technically recorded before Ace's passing, I just wanted to give a disclaimer that obviously the information about Ace is not up to date. Of course, our thoughts and love go out to Ace, his family, his friends, his loved ones, and all of the fans who are mourning his loss. Ace obviously had such a profound impact on so many people, including myself, Tyler, and Beau. We'll talk more about his impact and passing on our next episode, which is going to be recorded around the end of October or beginning of November. And so we'll touch more on everything in that episode. But thanks for understanding. And, of course, rest in peace to the late, great, beloved Paul Ace Frehley. And welcome everybody to Classic Kiss here, presented by the Soundcheck. My name is Garrett, and after a very long 2 years, 2 and almost a half years coming up on, we are finally back, and we're going to be breaking down one of the most interesting albums in Kiss's history. It is a concept album. It's one that a lot of people either hate or love. I got my two co-hosts with me. I got Tyler.
What's up, everybody?
And then I got Beau over here.
So glad to be back, everyone.
Absolutely. It feels really good to be back, and trying to set up everything for the podcast again. I was like, wait, is this how it goes? Is this how it goes?
It almost felt alien in a way.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, like we said, we haven't done this in about 2 to 2.5 years, but it feels like it feels like it's been long, but now that we're actually in it, I'm like, okay, I remember this. I remember seeing you guys sitting next to each other, me over here across this little tabletop thing that we have. But again, thanks for bearing with us, everybody. It's funny because I was going back and listening to all of those episodes, and I was thinking, at the beginning of each episode or at the end of each episode, I'd be like, we're getting back into the groove of things and everything like that. And, we're going to have more episodes lined up. And then, a year would go by and we didn't upload anything. So that's just, that's the fact of life. I mean, lots of different life events have happened here in the past 2.5 years. And since we really started the podcast in, 4 years. So life happens, but it's good to be back, and I'm glad that you guys are with me. So
absolutely. I'm so excited to be back with you guys, especially to do this record. This is such an interesting case within their discography that to start again with this one feels super like a unique opportunity.
Right. And
I'm just like, I literally bought a book to do this whole episode off of that's like 600 pages, and I meant to bring it with to show you guys the book, but it's the same people that did the book that I used the research for the solo records off of.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And thick book.
I bet it is. If it's 600 pages and it's just on the Elder, or is it just like that time frame for the most part?
Only on the Elder.
That is wild. Listen, we were talking about it before, just kind of in text, and it's like everything that we looked more and more into with this album, it was just like, man, we feel like this is going to be a long episode. So, Beau, we haven't really gotten you on the mic as much yet. Are you excited for this, episode? I know that we've all kind of had some reservations about this album in the past, but, what are your thoughts as we get into this?
I'm really excited to actually hear what you guys have to say about this album now, because, I just kind of been listening to it on and off for a while now, but it's gonna be a good one.
This is going to be a lot. And I'm concerned because normally we say, oh, we don't think this episode's going to be very long. And then we sit here for 2 hours. Yeah. If we think this is going to be long, this is going to be a nightmare.
Right.
So I'm sorry for you in the future.
Oh, no. It'll be fun.
Not.
I was like, hey, fuck it. He fucking made my bitch ass get up on a Sunday morning and, come up to my house. He can take all the time he needs to edit it. That's what Beau is saying.
You could almost say, though, that once we're through the Elder and Garrett has to do the editing, he becomes a creature of the night.
Hey, there we go. I like that.
I have a feeling you're going to have some long nights dealing with this one.
No, I think it should be. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. And I agree with the point that you were making, that this is such an interesting album to come back to, because this really is like the changing.
Yeah.
This is the album where, I mean, obviously Unmasked was kind of like that because Peter wasn't on Unmasked. But like, this is, in my opinion, where you see Kiss go from what they were to almost what they're going to be. And I'll elaborate more on that in, coming up here in a few moments.
Right.
But there's a lot of music on this album that when I listen to it, I'm like, this is very early kind of prototype 80s Kiss stuff that I can hear in there. There's a lot of riffs that I hear, and especially in the heavier songs on The Elder, that I'm like, man, like this is, even though it is more, there's a few songs on there that are a little bit softer, such as A World Without Heroes and things like that, like Just a Boy, whatever. There's other songs that you listen to, and when you hear the grooves, you're like, oh man, this is some shit that I could hear off of like Creatures or Lick It Up, or as we get into like maybe Asylum or Animalized or something like that. There's just like that, the rhythms and stuff. It's just, I'm not doing a great job of explaining it, but we'll get more into it. I got some great notes on a per track basis.
Right.
So.
And I know exactly what you mean, and I agree, but it's also a weird thing because it's the end of like a skid in where they were in this time period, because we get a little bit of like some slight disco influence, a lot of pop on Dynasty. Right. And then we go just balls deep into pop in Unmasked. Yeah. And you can really see where they have lost where they are. They've gone completely off the rails.
Right.
And so now this almost feels like it was an attempt at a recovery that they fumbled. Yeah. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way, but it is very well documented that Ace wanted to make a metal record going into this. And some of this, I feel, was almost an attempt to cope with that, while not directly following that route. Yeah,
it was like they were dipping their toes in the water a little bit of some metal, I think.
Yeah, and I could be misremembering, but I'm almost positive they did some things to placate Ace with this record because of the dramatic tonal shift it was from where he wanted to be.
Right. Well, and I think it's fitting that, we can continue on this point because we're obviously going to be talking about this for the next 2 hours. But to go off of that, Dark Light, which was written by Ace, we'll get to it in the track, breakdown. I think that is probably the first song where you really feel like, okay, this is kind of a metal song. Not a metal song, but this is like, it's probably the heaviest track so far at that point after it's done. Maybe.
I think that's definitely debatable. I think it does this interesting thing where it almost feels like he wrote the riff to Torpedo Girl and went, I'm going to take a step back on the oddity of it and kind of make it something different, but give it a little more.
Yes. Yeah. I noticed that too, that it has that some similarities in there. So, all right. Well, kind of getting some of our, first thoughts about this album, kind of out of the way. We're going to jump into some of the general information. Actually, before that, I do want to, preface this episode by saying it's really interesting because, I had texted the guys, I texted Beau and Tyler probably sometime last month before I got married. And I was like, hey, I'd really love to, after my wedding is done, to get back into the studio and hit a couple albums out of the park and get them edited and put up because, like I said, life has happened. And I was like, after the end of September, it would be fantastic to just get back into it. And I'm going to have some time for it. And, so we're starting to kind of like, okay, yeah, this would be cool. We could get this date. We're open these weekends, blah, 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 this, different stuff. And all of a sudden we get news that Ace had a medical emergency. And obviously, our thoughts are with him and his family and his friends at this time. Not a lot of information has really come out, and we don't want to speculate too much. I mean, we've seen, some things online, on Reddit and whatnot, but, there was a trip to the hospital for Ace, and he had to cancel the rest of his shows for the rest of the year, I believe. And
yes.
And early next year, I can't remember.
I believe it was the remainder of this tour, but I don't know how far into next year that goes.
Right. So, obviously, hoping that Ace can have a speedy recovery. And then not even a week ago.
It was like Tuesday, I think.
Yeah. So we're recording this on a Sunday, and the Tuesday prior to this Sunday, they news came out that Gene was driving a vehicle and he passed out or fainted or something like that. And his car careened into the other lane or over the other lane, and it I don't know if he like hit a guardrail. What do you know any more information?
I have no other information about the specific accident. All I know is that he is now home.
Right.
I don't think he was even admitted to the hospital for a long-term stay. I think it was just an immediate medical checkup.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, no one was seriously hurt.
Right.
You know, thank goodness for whatever that's worth. But like,
yeah. And from what I've heard is I think Shannon had come out and said that he's on like a new medication, and this new medication really requires him to drink a lot of water, which Gene just doesn't drink a lot of water in general from what I've read. And again, I don't want to speculate, but this is something that Shannon has like come out and said, or one of his spokespeople has come out and said, where it's basically, you know, it's nothing too crazy. He's just got to make sure that he's doing what the doctor's telling him. You know, I mean, he is what, 76?
I think so. Yeah.
But we just wanted to kind of get that out of the way. That kind of gives us a time frame of when we're recording this. And I'm very excited to get into this album because I think that the fact that this was Eric Carr's first album blows my mind. And, you know, it's one of those things that it's funny because this is his first album, but not his first tour, I don't think. Because he filled in for a couple of those shows in Australia or New Zealand.
I think he did the majority of the tour.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. So yeah, there's just, this is really where we get to kind of start talking about Eric Carr, which I'm very, very excited about. So with that being said, we're going to be right back. We're going to get into some of the general information on recording, the production, the history behind the band at this point. You know, we've talked, at length in the recent episodes or past episodes, I should say, of, the cracks that we're showing, and everything's really starting to fall apart, at least behind the scenes for the original four members. So we're going to kind of touch a little bit more on that as, we get into music from the Elder. So we'll be right back.
We'll be back in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
And we're back here with Classic Kiss presented by the Soundcheck. My name is Garrett. Got my two co-hosts with me, Tyler.
What's up, everybody?
And Beau.
What up?
And we are getting into the general information on the recording, the production, the behind the scenes, the happenings, whatever you want to call it, for music from the Elder. I always say the Elder, and it's actually music from the Elder. Everybody refers to it as the Elder. But this album actually released back in 1981. It is the 9th studio album. Released on November 10th of 1981, and very interesting time period for this band because lots of different things happening behind the scenes. We got, Peter Criss fully out of the band at this point. I mean, he was out of the band during Unmasked, or at the point of Unmasked, I should say. Sorry. And he wasn't on that album at all, except for the cover.
Yeah.
but even then, so Anton Fig filled in for the drums on Unmasked, which did a phenomenal job, in my opinion, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Unmasked. And if you want our opinions on that episode, definitely check out our last episode. It's funny because we were talking about, or I was going through listening to all the podcasts, as I stated before, and Dress to Kill. I know a lot of Kiss fans probably don't like us for that one, and Unmasked, I feel like a lot of
they're wrong.
Yeah, right. No, obviously, we're joking, we're doing it in jest, but it's if you like those albums, that's completely fine. But us here on the pod, we're just not big fans of it, I should say.
Yeah, and especially like I think that's one thing people should take into consideration with our opinions on those is we are actively being critical. It's not sitting here, oh, well, it's just shit because it's shit. Like, we're actively attempting to engage with the material. It's not just blindly throwing out an opinion for whatever reason.
Exactly. So definitely check out our opinions on the Unmasked episode as we kind of get, if you want to get a little bit more background information on what is happening with the band, because that episode has a lot of information with it. That and Dynasty, really, especially with Peter's falling out with the band and Ace's, falling out with the band starting to really, really show. So definitely check out that episode. But back to music from the Elder. Like I said, band was just in a really weird state at this point. You have Peter leaving the band. Was he fired or did he leave on his own? I can't remember.
So he was originally fired. They gave him the opportunity to audition uncontested for his job back.
Okay, I do remember that.
Yeah, because that's where the drum lessons come in, which is still fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And then once that audition was kind of a shit show, they opened up auditions for new drummers.
Right.
Which is where we get Mr. Rusty Blades coming in.
Rusty Blades. An amazing name.
I'm still
awesome.
having listened back to the Unmasked episode this week and hearing that section again about Eric Carr. Just I heard it and I just went, come on, man, what are you doing? Rusty Blades.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you remember that one of the guys on the production team for the record was Victor Stabin.
Yeah.
So we had Rusty Blades and Victor Stabin. It's been 2.5 years and I still think that's fucking
It is hilarious.
Should have went with Rusty Blades, man.
Rusty Blades.
So fucking great.
Why not Whips and Chains or some shit?
Yeah,
You know,
there you
like if we're throwing out silly names.
Oh my goodness. All right. So speaking of Unmasked, we're going to talk a little bit about, Unmasked going into this album, because obviously they were released within a year of each other, or around that year mark, because Unmasked was back in 1980. So Unmasked sales drop off was about 65% from what I've researched. Now, if I'm wrong on that, my apologies, but a lot of these notes are from, last year, 2 years ago, like kind of what Tyler said about his notes. But yeah, about 65% drop off in sales for Unmasked. The popularity in the States was down incredibly. However, they were just off of a very successful tour in New Zealand and Australia, because for some reason they were just like at their peak down there. So
weird.
Yeah, very weird. I mean, I guess news travels slow across the world instead of fast across the world. But
it goes to show you how internationally stuff is loved, even though we don't like it here in the States.
Right. Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And it's always interesting to see how different cultures and different countries react to certain albums or certain time periods of a band and stuff like that.
Right. And it'd be interesting to see, and I'm certain that data would almost be impossible to track down anyway, but because they were so wildly successful in Japan at the same time that they were in the US, I'd be interested to see if they had a similar sort of drop off in Japan at this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like that's really hard data to try to quantify. So like good luck attempting to find that shit.
Right. So yeah, so just a little bit more on the information here. We got, like I said, popularity in the States was down a little bit, or incredibly, I should say. They toured exclusively out of the U.S. for the first time ever for Unmasked. Only show they did in the U.S. was at the Palladium Theater in New York City. So obviously this tour is in between the release of Unmasked and the release of Music from the Elders. So that is the only show they did in the United States, was at Palladium or Palladium. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced. We'll say Palladium because that sounds cooler. Palladium Theater in New York City. So, which kind of makes sense because New York City is their home and they have a big following there and it's a big city. So you're going to at least sell probably more tickets than what you would in other places. But yeah, that's kind of what I have. And Ty, I'm going to kind of throw it off to you a little bit. I know you got some notes in there about Casablanca at this time.
Yeah.
You got some notes about, them being bought out fully by, was it Polygram, if you want to touch on that?
Yeah, it is Polygram. And that was right around the time of Unmasked. I had trouble finding specific dates for it, so I can't tell you specifically when it was, but it's in this time period. So yeah, Polygram bought out the remaining 50% of Casablanca that they did not already own. Which then in turn caused a key man clause in the contract of a large percentage of Casablanca's artists to be invoked.
Which I didn't even know what a key man clause was until like you had shown me a little bit of your notes, because we wanted to make sure that we didn't have, or we had some, correct information. But
yeah,
do you know the definition? Because I don't, of a key man clause. I'm guessing
so basically in this instance, what it was, and Donna Summer is one of the biggest people to have invoked this key man clause in her contract from Casablanca. Basically what it is in her contract, she had a stipulation where if Neil Bogart is no longer with the company, she contractually has the right to leave. And so a lot of the artists in Casablanca's catalog had this key man clause in their contract.
Gotcha.
So with Neil Bogart now no longer having a position within Casablanca because Polygram has bought out the rest of his ownership, a large handful of the artists started to invoke this key man clause. Not some of their bigger ones. Obviously, Donna Summer, like I said, was huge, and she was the largest artist from their catalog to invoke this clause. Kiss had discussed it, but they ultimately ended up not doing it. So like I said, she was the largest artist to use it. She left and became the first signing for Geffen Records.
Okay.
I had intended originally to check and find more artists that were early signings for Geffen after Donna Summer. I just did not end up having the time. And like I said, these notes are 2.5 years old at this point. So when I started rereading them, I went, hey, that's something you should add. Didn't add it. That's on me. But a court ruled that Donna Summer still owed Casablanca one more record, which is the origin for She Works Hard for the Money.
Yeah.
Fun fact, that record spent 11 weeks on the Billboard charts and peaked at number 75.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So her big middle finger to the company technically made them a decent amount of money.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Regarding music from The Elder, it remains uncertified in the U.S. despite having sold more than 100,000 copies since the beginning of the Nielsen SoundScan era in 1991. 100,000, obviously, in America being the baseline for a record to achieve gold. So even though it is still not considered a gold record. It has not been recertified, and especially at this point with a record that they don't even care about, it is likely to never receive a certification.
Interesting.
It is, I think, one of 2 KISS records to not receive a certification.
What's the other one?
We will find out if I'm correct when we get that far, but Carnival of Souls.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, they didn't even want to release that record.
Yeah.
They only did it because someone bootlegged it, and they went, well, if someone else is going to send it out there, we'll make the money off.
Yeah, exactly. It literally just a money grab. So, which, I mean, understandable. What else do you have? Because I do know that you have some production notes in there, like demos of, I think you do, of certain songs that were demoed.
I should.
But we can save those for a little bit. But anything else that's kind of going on behind the scenes with the band, or even, the record label, important people, like you said, Neil Bogart, who's been with them since the beginning, is now out from Casablanca.
Right.
Because of the buyout, or not out from Casablanca, but, just the buyout, he wasn't there anymore. So,
right. One of the most important things with this record that I think we need to cover is the fact that it was originally intended to be the soundtrack for a movie based on a story that Gene had written, obviously titled The Elder. Right. And the movie never got made.
Yeah.
I don't know how serious that consideration was before the production of the record began, but it was something that was a genuine thought.
Right.
So obviously this is a concept record, as you've already said. So that plays heavily into the fact that it tells a story, but it's also telling a story because it was meant to be part of a story.
Right.
Which blows my mind that this is a concept record that has 2 different track orders depending upon when it was released. Yes. Because now you're just fucking with the story.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Right. And on that note, I do want to get into some of the production. So this was recorded from March through September of that same year of 1981 at various locations. So Ace in the Hole Studios in Wilton, Connecticut, which was Ace's house, his own studio that he built, which is really cool. You can find a video of it on YouTube of somebody going through it. Just like showing it off because they like had listed it for sale or whatever, and somebody took a tour of it. Really, really cool, just like vibe to it. So this was recorded there. But the thing is all of the parts that were recorded at Ace's studio, only Ace was there, because I think you had put it in your notes, or maybe I had put it in my notes. I don't see it here, that Ace was not really talking with the band at this point for the most part. The only time that they were talking was for the actual like recording sessions, but Ace didn't want to fly out to New York City or wherever they were doing it. Toronto. So yeah, so sound interchange, Toronto. Some of the stuff was also recorded A&R and Record Plant Studios in New York, and Ezrin Farm, King City in Canada as well, which Bob Ezrin from Canada. So that makes sense. I think some of the choir stuff was recorded in New York City. Like the Gregorian chants and stuff like that.
That would make sense. This is also incredibly funny to me, just based on the history of them from Destroyer. But obviously Ace is unhappy, as we've covered. He wanted to make a heavier record, and they're making this now. So he's very unhappy with the direction that they're in at the moment. And as a result, Ace starts using heavier. So this is, in the history of KISS, this is his heaviest use period.
Oh, like cocaine, alcohol, drugs in general. Gotcha.
He is very not sober.
Yeah.
But I think it's incredibly funny that Bob is just as bad during this period.
Yeah, he is.
And Paul claims, and obviously I've used all the autobiographies also as sources. And as we've said before, some of those are not necessarily super trustworthy, so take them with a grain of salt. And one of our catchphrases here on the sound check, we weren't there, we don't know.
Yes.
So everything we say is obviously coming from secondhand accounts, firsthand accounts that are necessarily not super reliable, but we don't know the truth of them.
Yeah.
But Paul actually said that Bob's use was so heavy during this period that he was not coming into the studio as regularly as he would have, like with Destroyer. And it got so bad that at one point they were having to send him tapes.
Oh.
And his wife was relaying messages to them over the phone.
Okay. But I got to say this. For this album, if that's true, for this album, the fact that they were able to pull off this album with that type of communication blows my fucking mind.
Yeah, because like this album feels like it was always intended to be a mess.
Yeah.
So the fact that it didn't come out as poorly as it could have is insane.
Like the fact that they were able to, like, just with the communication, be able to pull something together that somewhat tells a cohesive story, kind of. And we'll get more into the track listing later. But I mean, wow, like that's crazy. Like the fact that his wife was the one that was communicating for the most part and relaying. Yeah.
Like it's almost the equivalent of leaving sticky notes on the fridge and never having actual communication and expecting something to get done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just so wild to me that this is where we are. And Paul even says that in order to speed up the production because of these issues, he and Gene started working in two separate booths to attempt to get more shit done to get the record finished.
Yeah, that is something else. And you know, props to them for really taking a swing. And I kind of want to get into some of this stuff real quick. So obviously we've been talking about Bob Ezrin a lot. I don't know if I mentioned it, but he's the one who produced the album. And of course, Bob was the one who produced Destroyer, which can kind of be looked at, not necessarily as a concept album, but it has lots of good themes on it of youth and, you know, just taking the world by storm and stuff like that, especially as it was like a calling, an anthem to call to young kids, you know, flaming youth. You got Detroit Rock City in there. You got King of the Nighttime World, lots of just themes of just being young in the 70s. Drug, sex, rock and roll type thing, you know?
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, being young, you know, almost the empowerment of young people. It almost is in a way a low concept record.
Right.
Which I don't feel like we see too many of, or if we do, I don't feel like they ever get really acknowledged just because it's such an odd topic.
Yeah. Like concept albums in general.
A low concept record, which is where
I get what you're saying.
It has similar themes through the songs and like through lines, but it doesn't necessarily tell a specific story.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Bob, he's back for this record. And like we were just saying, he worked on Destroyer and he would later come back for Revenge, which we'll get to that in future episodes.
Yes.
And
good redemption.
Yeah, good redemption. And I mean, honestly, when I think about it, you know, I'll save my final thoughts for this album at the end, but I really don't think that there's a huge miss in any of these. Obviously, Destroyer is one of their, you know, marquee albums, but
I think this was a miss in a broader sense.
Yes. Yeah. It's a miss for a different reason, I think. So fans at this point, you know, thought that Kiss was really only trying to make money instead of making good rock music, especially the diehard fans. So this was kind of what the fans were feeling like at the time of this release. Kiss sent out a fall issue of the Kiss Army newsletter that stated their new album was going to be hard and heavy from the start to finish, straight on rock and roll that will knock your socks off. That is in quotation marks. This didn't end up being the case, obviously.
Yeah, they missed that mark real big airball, bud.
Yeah. Paul and Gene, you know, they wanted that, but they also believed that a bold artistic statement would be the thing that would generate more interest in Kiss at this time point. It's interesting because you have those fans that are clamoring for them to go back to kind of their roots, but they had just done that with Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun. And then obviously they did the 4 solo albums. So you kind of got a taste of each of what their personal interests are, especially with Peter and, you know, his more jazz and soul, influence on his solo record. Ace is just pure hard rock. Paul's hard rock as well. Gene doing a lot of experimental stuff with like orchestras and whatnot, and they're not orchestras, but just like there's a lot more instrumental
variants, and
yeah,
also having the presence of a choir there as opposed to just stereotypical at this time balls to the wall rock and roll.
Yeah, so it's like you kind of got a taste of each of their flavors that they really enjoy, and then they come back and they do a disco album with Dynasty. We'll call it for what it is, but it's a good one. It's pretty solid.
Yeah, I still love Dynasty.
Yeah,
it's weird, and like in general I could understand, but like I think it has its moments.
Right. And then you get into Unmasked, which is their just foray into the pop world, especially at that time period, which has a couple of really solid songs on it. But like I said, we have our disagreements, especially with the production on it. So it's interesting that people after 2 albums were already calling for them to go back to their roots. And this is one thing that I will say is it does irk me a little bit when artists always hear from their fans, oh, you don't make music like you used to, or you need to go back to making this style of music. This is what got you famous, or this is what we all love. It's okay for bands and artists to explore different ideas. But at this time period, with everything that was happening in the behind the scenes, everybody kind of knew that, Peter was out of the band at this point. To come in and do this type of album, I don't really necessarily think was the best move, but they took a swing, and I think they at least hit something. They hit like a single or a double. You know what I mean? They didn't hit a home run, but what do you think, Beau? I mean, do you think that they should have went back to their roots, or do you think that this was
Well, this album did give me a couple songs that I really actually enjoyed. For a while that you two both hated.
What's that?
I.
Oh, okay. All right.
But corny.
It is.
It's corny.
It's corny.
It's not bad. It's not corny. A bad song. I like it more now.
But yeah, most of their songs by this point are corny.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
It feels corny in the same way, but obviously with different material that like Take Me does. You know what I mean? Where like Take Me is just a cornball of a fucking song.
Yeah. I mean, Kiss lyrics have always been corny in general.
Yeah.
But. I mean, but the chorus of that, if you have somebody who's not mentally there and you put that song on, it might cheer them up.
It's not bad.
It might get them motivated.
I understand that. I like that. I like that viewpoint that you have there.
I honestly, especially having listened to the record as many times as I did this week, I did enjoy that sort of ending vibe for the record. I do think we'll save that for the track list because that's genuinely something that should be discussed about the track. But no, I get what you mean. I don't hate I anymore.
Right.
I never really necessarily hated it. I just thought it was an odd song choice. Yeah. But like, hey, you like what you like.
Yeah. In the context of the album, it makes a little bit more sense.
Yes.
And we're definitely going to get more to that in the track list breakdown. But going back to some of the stuff, obviously we touched on Ace didn't really want to do this type of album. He wanted to do a hard rock album. So he didn't go to he didn't go with the band to Canada as he was becoming more and more frustrated.
That being said, I did not answer your question though.
Oh, sorry.
I do feel like they should have probably went back a little bit and done a little bit heavier. Maybe they just stuck together a little bit more, and then Ace would have allowed them to do stuff like this more.
Yeah, oh, that's an interesting point. Like, be like, hey, like, let's do something that I want to do, or not do something that I want to do, but let me have a little bit more creative input, and then we can do whatever you guys want, maybe at a future date, or even later in the album.
It more of likely probably would have saved the band, a lot more.
I think it definitely would have helped glue some of the cracks together a little bit.
It would have prolonged it, but I still think at the end of the day, Kiss was just destined to fall apart, especially in the 80s. I just think that musically and creatively, everybody was just on different trajectories. And I mean, we really start to see it with Gene not being involved in a lot of the 80s stuff, and Paul really carrying all the weight of the band, especially towards the middle to late 80s. But yeah, that's a good point. I really do. I do see where you're coming from there, Beau. Going back to Ace, he really wanted to do the hard rock album, which, Tyler kind of touched on. A lot of the guitar solos that he recorded did not end up on the final cut, which is interesting. He often got outvoted in decisions regarding the album due to Eric Carr being an employee and not a partner.
Member.
Yeah, not a member.
I hate that.
like the original four were. Because if you remember, at the very beginning of the podcast, we talked about it. At the very beginning of KISS, they all had equal voting rights. They 25% for all four of them. And, I
now
think
we're basically
was
looking
Neil
at
the
33.
tiebreaker? I can't remember if it was
no, Bill was the tiebreaker.
or Bill. Yeah, sorry, Bill was the tiebreaker. But at this point, Peter's out of the band. There's only 3 of the original 4 left. Gene and Paul are usually in lockstep for the most part, and so Ace just felt like he was kind of getting the short end of the stick, literally.
Yeah,
So,
well, and I think this record is another good example of them kind of being in lockstep, because obviously if the two of them didn't agree, Ace obviously didn't. So we probably wouldn't have got the record.
right.
But on top of that, obviously Gene wrote the story that the record is based off of. He took it to Bob, and Bob just sucked him off about it.
Yeah.
Like, was like, hey, this is going to be awesome. Like, this is such a cool concept. Like, we can make something really cool with this. So obviously they're both on board. Paul ends up on board. Even Bill thought it was the right move.
Yeah.
And obviously hindsight's 2020. It's hard to look back at this and think, yeah, this was the right move for obvious reasons.
Exactly.
But until they took it to the record label, they almost had no one to check them on this.
Yeah.
And the label is actually the reason that the track list on the original printing is fucked up.
If you want to go ahead and touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So the label basically, when they took them the record, they hated it because you almost have to get halfway into the track list to get a rock song out.
Yeah.
And so I can understand from a business standpoint why the label would be upset about that.
Right.
So they ended up shifting the track list around. And I think on the original version of the record, I think The Oath is the first song.
Yes. On the
that's so out of left field.
Yeah. So that's what it is. And I got a little bit of more information. So it says the version of the Elder, I should say, that was released in the US, Europe, and Brazil had a different song order than the one originally intended. The reason for this being, like you said, that the label wanted to emphasize The Oath and A World Without Heroes as potential singles, which is very interesting to me that A World Without Heroes was going to be a potential single, even though that's like the softest song out of the entire album.
Like putting that ballad forth as the record, which I think might come from a similar place of like Beth was hugely successful, and then Hard Luck Woman obviously not reaching the same level, but was still a critical success of a song.
And it's so this version has The Oath as the opening song and A World Without Heroes as the first songs on side A and side B respectively. However, if you listen to it this way, the way it was released, in the US, Europe, and Brazil, it disrupts the flow of the narrative, as you were saying. So those two songs are the singles that they wanted to push, and that's why they put those at the beginning. But even other than that, there's still other songs that are out of the order. So like Just a Boy, I think, or no, Odyssey on the original.
Odyssey's like the last song on the original track.
Yeah,
list,
it's the second. It's track number 10 because
what the fuck?
It's interesting because we'll go ahead and get into this real quick. So the intended track list order, and this is how we're going to break it down in the track by track breakdown, is track number 1, Fanfare, then it goes into Just a Boy, then into Odyssey, then to Only You, and then to Under the Rose. And then track number 6 is Dark Light. After that, World Without Heroes. After that is The Oath. Then it goes into Mr. Blackwell. Escape from the Island is after that. And then I is the final record. And the finale that was originally, released as a song called The Finale in the original album that was released, that is actually packaged together with I. So it's at the very end of I. It doesn't have its own title.
Yeah, and that's the segment where Morpheus is talking to the Elder about the boy being ready.
Ready, yeah. And the track list order that was actually released in 1981 is The Oath, then it goes into Fanfare, then it goes to Just a Boy, then Dark Light, then Only You.
What the fuck?
Yes, yeah. So that there's already two different, songs that are switched out of place there.
I'm getting angry.
And then it goes to Under the Rose, A World Without Heroes, Mr. Blackwell, Escape from the Island, Odyssey, I, and then Finale. And like I said, that part is included at the end of I in the remastered version or the re-release, that whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just really interesting that not only did they take those two singles and put them at at the top of side A and the top of side B, it really they kind of jumbled everything in there. And it's just like, what were they thinking? Like, I understand that they were thinking they wanted, kind of a hard rock song to be the opening song for the album to get people to be like, oh, this is going to be sick. But at the end of the day, don't fuck up the other songs too. You know what I mean? So the narrative of the story was just a fucking shit show. Pardon my French, for lack of better words.
No, it absolutely was, though. One thing I would like to point out, just because obviously you just ran down the track list, and we have a little bit that we can kind of look at from the future to see some things that were kind of intended to be on this record and just did not make it.
Yes. Yeah.
One of which was Ace brought in a song called Heaven, and obviously Heaven got cut, and it was later re-recorded by Ace for the first Fraley's Comet record as Breakout.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a decent song. I don't hate it. Off the top of my head, I don't find it memorable.
Right.
But I remember, I'm almost positive when I made a playlist to just listen through all the shit at one time instead of going record by record by record, I'm almost positive I put that in that playlist.
Yeah.
And then Deadly Weapon was also demoed for this record. It was the first song they demoed. And obviously it again also got cut. It got moved, I believe, to Asylum. And
interesting.
The demo for that was on, I'm almost positive it's on the Creatures of the Night record that they released in, was that 23 or 22?
2020. Yeah, it was 2022. Yeah.
Okay. And that
the
has
deluxe re-release that.
Yes, that has a ton of demos on it. It's got some that I really like. And it's also got the one of the songs on there that is demoed has the lyrics for the song that would later become I'm an Animal on Sonic Boom. I have always thought that was incredible.
Oh yeah. That is fantastic.
Obviously we've got those. One thing that I do think is odd for how inconsistently liked this record is amongst the fan base is how many songs have been covered from it.
Yeah.
So Doro Pesh, who, big in the rock and hair metal scene in the 80s. Doro covered Only You. The one that I think is the most interesting just because of her history with the band is Cher has done a cover of A World Without Heroes.
Right. Which at this is the time period that he is dating Cher, right?
I'm almost positive they've already broken up.
Have they already broken up? Okay,
Pretty sure.
Interesting.
Because I believe they were dating around the solo record.
Okay, gotcha.
Because obviously she does feature briefly on his solo record.
Yeah.
One that I've always thought was weird, and I'm not the biggest fan of it being like the quote unquote metal guy for the record. The band Arch Enemy, who is a melodic death metal band from Sweden, covered the Oath,
which is fantastic. By the way, quick shout out to our friend Mike. That's where he got his Xbox gamer tag from.
Yeah, Arch Enemy. That's where his name comes from. He's a big Arch Enemy fan, obviously.
Right.
But I've always thought that was such an odd band and song choice.
Yeah,
it just feels weird. Like I said, not the biggest Arch Enemy fan. I appreciate him, but finding that out, I was like, what the fuck?
Which I mean, the Oath definitely has some very metal elements to it, especially with the riff. It's
got a very chuggy
riff.
Riff.
Exactly. So, anything else on some of the demos that you had on there? I got a couple here that I have listed.
Those are the only two demos that I knew offhand for the record.
Right. So I have here listed, now granted this is from Wikipedia, so again, take it with a grain of salt, but the original demos for Deadly Weapon, Feel Like Heaven, and Nowhere to Run were included on the 2022 deluxe re-release of the Creatures of the Night album, which those were all demos that were recorded for this time frame, especially for Music from the Elder. There's a few instrumentals known only by their bootleg names. The difference between Men and Boys, and I have here where it says KIX are for kids, so kicks are for kids. I'm guessing that's
so silly.
I don't know if I misspelled it or something like that.
No, I have a feeling that's probably correct, and that's dumb.
And then Council of the Elder, which obviously lends to a lot of the the story of the Elder, and kind of going back to what you had brought up about Heaven. That would later become Breakout on Fraley's Comet's first album, but it also was a different song.
Yeah, that is also the original recording for that is what would turn into Car Jam 81 on Revenge.
Yeah.
Which, as when we were younger and kind of discovered the whole record together, I remember that was a song that we all very much enjoyed coming back to, just for how like fun and kind of bouncy it is.
Yeah, off of, you're talking about Revenge in general, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, but the song on Revenge,
you know, there were songs that we all had kind of known already, but then when we discovered Revenge as a record, and finding that song on there, that was one that we would kind of come back to.
Right, and it was written by Ace and Eric, right?
Yes,
and that's the reason why Ace would actually use that idea, I guess, the boom 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 boom. He would use that riff as Breakout from his
the first Fraley's Comet record.
Exactly. So really cool it's really cool to see like how songs start as a seed and then they really do just like kind of grow into other things. And speaking of, something that starts as a seed and grows into other things, Tyler, you were talking about how Bob planted the seed a little bit more and watered it, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because obviously I've mentioned at this point that Gene took the concept for the story to Bob, and that's kind of where the whole record starts to sprout from. And Gene originally, from what Bob has said, was not keen on it being a record. He kind of wanted to make the movie, possibly do some music for the soundtrack, but like was kind of just bouncing shit off Bob. And Bob was the one, like I said earlier, he just sucked Gene's dick all over this whole concept. And he, according to himself, was the one that pushed them into making this the record. And so Bob has since taken blame for that. And I do kind of appreciate, I think I might have already touched on it briefly, that Paul actually has said since that it doesn't really matter because we all took part in this. So we are all to blame on some level for it.
Very interesting. Yeah. I mean, like, good on him, like, good on them for all just kind of coming around to being like, hey, it was a bad time. It was a bad time in the history of the band, and being able to own up to everybody kind of taking their own, share in the blame. So good on them for that. But, as we get into the concept of the album, because I do want to touch on that and the story behind it and stuff like that before we get into the tracklist breakdown. Some information on, Music from the Elder, the fallout from it, real quick. So critical reception to the album was actually not that bad at first, but the album was a commercial failure and became extremely unpopular with fans and critics, which I find interesting because if it was, if critical reception of the album wasn't that bad at first, why would the fact that it's not selling well or the commercial success of it isn't great, why would the fact of that cause critics to then be like, actually, it's not a good album, because if it's a good album, if you're going to sit there and make a review about it and be like, yeah, this is a decent album, it's got a decent story to it, it could be better. Why would they start to sour on it more after the fact? You know what I mean?
That is odd. And I'm sure some of it probably comes from Rolling Stone and their influence in the sphere itself, because they have always obviously historically not been huge on Kiss,
right.
Which everyone has their preference, blah, 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 whatever bullshit. But, that's so odd.
Yeah, very interesting. Fans at this point thought that Kiss was only really trying to make money instead of making good rock music, which we kind of touched about earlier. That had kind of been the sentiment for the last couple of years, especially Dynasty, Unmasked, in that era, because the merchandising was just through the roof at this point. According to Gene, a movie deal was actually in the works and casting had begun, but it ended up in development hell, which I'm not exactly sure how much I believe that, because is there really any evidence that casting had begun for it? We don't know.
Yeah, like what
Maybe
studio was making it? Where was it in, who was the casting director?
Right.
Like, we
like
don't know any of this information.
This stuff has to be documented, and it might be out there somewhere, but we haven't come across it yet. So it was stuck in development hell, as he said. Budgets were prepared for a tour, but nothing ever came to fruition. And this has since become sort of a cult classic, for lack of a better term, among Kiss fans and concept album fans. There's people who actually, may not be giant fans of Kiss, but they hear this record and they're like, hey, this is kind of cool. It's got something to it that other Kiss albums don't.
Yeah. And I especially didn't even realize when we were younger, just how much that like cult classic status amongst a certain sect of the Kiss fans really existed. Because there is a guy, if you watch some of the behind the scenes footage for Kiss Symphony, who was very adamant that he wanted them to play something off The Elder. And it just like a fan going to the show and being, they did some interviews with some people outside of the arena of like, hey, what do you want to hear tonight? What are you hoping they play?
Right.
And he literally said, if they don't play something off the Elder, I'm going to scream. And I remember it verbatim because being younger, when I first found the Elder, I went, what the fuck was he even on about? It just, obviously at the time, it did not click with me. Not saying it does now. You'll find that out in a little bit, whether or not that's true. But, it just, when I was younger, that was a sentence that just did not resonate with me. So I remember it in a weird way because of that. Yeah.
Speaking of live performances of, songs from this album, they didn't really do obviously we talked, they didn't do a tour because it was just, there was no success with this album whatsoever, but they did do a few performances. I don't know. Did you have that in your notes?
I had some on it. Let me get that back up real quick. But
I was about to say, isn't that why they started using A World Without Heroes in their set?
Kind of. Yeah. Because obviously they did A World Without Heroes on Unplugged.
Yes.
Which I think is a great performance of that song.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic performance. It's probably the best performance, in my opinion. But other than that, I don't think that they really used A World Without Heroes. They didn't really perform it a lot in their concerts, but they did do a couple of performances on like TV shows that had it. And I know that they did a live performance of that song. They did a live performance of and they did a live performance of The Oath. I know that for sure.
Yes, but live in quotation marks because they are lip synced performances.
Right.
They are not.
I will say, I was actually watching on YouTube. There's ones on, it's called Friday Nights for Studio something. I can't remember what it was called. And it doesn't sound like it's lip synced at all because I can hear like the imperfections in Paul's voice. And
interesting. I wonder if maybe they just used a backing track for that one. And
there may be.
Yeah. One of the performances though, that is lip synced. You can very clearly tell Ace has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah. That's funny. I wonder if maybe was there a music video release for this at all?
The music videos that did spawn out of it were those live performances.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yes. Maybe they did like editing in the, for like a music video after the fact. Maybe
there is a music video for A World Without Heroes. I forgot about that until I just started thinking about that while you were speaking, because I can vividly picture it in my brain.
Yeah. So really not a lot of live performances of these songs. There is a live performance of The Oath that happened in 2013, I believe.
So they've done a couple songs from this record since, but they were mostly on the Kiss cruises.
Kiss cruise, yeah.
So they attempted to perform, which I'm assuming that means that they started playing it and kind of just fell off somewhere in the middle. But they attempted to perform Only You on the Kiss Cruise 2.
Okay.
They did perform The Oath on Kiss Cruise 3 and A World Without Heroes on Kiss Cruise 5.
That's awesome. I was going to say, I don't know if you noticed, but I had it pulled up on the TV. Where it's the performance. It says 2013, which I'm guessing that was Kiss Cruise 3-ish, maybe.
That sounds
around
right.
that time period. But yeah, because Paul even says, he's like, we've only played this song once before. And we're going to try it again. So bear with us. And they just start going into it. And it actually sounds like a decent, version of the song.
Which song was it? The Oath?
The Oath.
I love it.
Eric
that's
Singer's,
awesome that they attempted to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, they're in full makeup too. It wasn't like one of those like unplugged sets that they do or where they don't have any. That it was really cool to hear like kind of not an updated version, but a recent version. And Paul's voice actually kind of holds up well, except for the falsetto parts of it. But like
sucks.
The verses sound fantastic, surprisingly.
Good.
And, especially because, around 2013, I mean, his voice was really starting to fall off, especially like late 2000s, early 2010s. But really, really cool version of that on YouTube that you can check out. So those are some of the live performances, whether you want to call them live or, whatever they are.
Right.
That's just the only thing that really came out of this album.
Yeah. Do you have a whole lot more to cover with like production or history before we get into kind of like the story? Because I have something I want to touch on, but it's not super important.
What is it that you want to touch on?
So historically, we have talked about when the band has looked back at records, what they have kind of given it as a like star rating with our previous episodes on previous records and everything. So I just kind of have those to touch on for this, which I think is just kind of fun for what it is. You know what I mean?
Right.
So obviously they've historically, when they went back and kind of gave these record star ratings, they've always done out of 5.
Yeah.
Paul gave this one a question mark.
I think
he said he just didn't believe he could judge it fairly to give it any stars because it's just too unlike what they were historically. Mm-hmm. So he just felt he could not give it a genuine rating. Gene gives it 0 stars, but says that if it were a bad Genesis record, he'd give it 2 stars.
What is that even supposed to mean?
I don't know. I guess it's so bad for us, but if it were bad for them, it'd still be okay-ish, I guess, which is a weird dig at Genesis.
Yeah,
but I'm also not a Genesis fan, so go for it. Ace gives it 2 stars and believes that it's a good record, but it's not a Kiss record. And obviously he was pushing to make a metal record, but he was outvoted.
And you know what? I don't disagree with that at all. It's I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it's a great record, but it's a solid
I think
record.
It could have been done better by someone else.
Yeah.
It just was too unfamiliar for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Damn. Anything else on that note?
No, that's pretty much all I've got until we really get into like a little more of like that script and, the film that was supposed to be.
Right. One more thing that I do want to touch on. I have it here in the notes. It says the Japanese pressing of this album contained the intended song sequence, although Escape from the Island was excluded from the release and instead included as a B-side of the Oath single, which is very interesting. This sequence was used with the inclusion of Escape from the Island when Music from the Elder was re-released on CD in 1997. And that's kind of where like the remastered versions start to come from and everything like that. In a 2021 interview, band consultant Robert V. Conti discussed how the original sequence was restored. When it came time to remaster The Elder, I contacted Gene asking for his thoughts about using that version for the CD. He was all for it, but one track, Escape from the Island, was not on the imported version. We could not find any production notes in the polygram files about where it belonged on that particular sequence. So, with the Demon's blessing, the track was added, the original sequence was restored, and the 1997 CD and cassette became the most complete versions of The Elder to date. And that is how you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music. You cannot find, at least in my research, you cannot find anything on Spotify, iTunes, or streaming services of the original release track listing, which has The Oath as the first song and like all the different songs out of order and stuff like that. Everything on streaming services is how it was originally intended for the actual story. So that's pretty cool. But that's just kind of what I have. We'll touch more about it on the track list once we're going to get to that. But let's get into the story. This is a very unique episode because no other Kiss album has really a story. We kind of touched on Destroyer having themes. But no other Kiss record has an actual story that it is trying to tell. And that's why this album is a concept record. You know what I mean?
Right.
But what were you?
I can get what you guys are saying. I can kind of almost see a little bit on Love Gun with the whole love theme going.
Yeah, but I think that's more of themes, the theme of it. But like that song, that record doesn't tell an actual story.
Yeah, like there's no plot to it.
Yeah.
I think it kind of falls in that same vein of Destroyer where it's got almost like a through line, but there's no like actual plot with characters.
Yeah, here's this person.
Yeah, because like,
this person.
Obviously with this record, for lack of a better term, with one of them,
right.
we have named characters.
Yeah.
Obviously, Mr. Blackwell being a track name, you know what I mean?
Right.
Is referring to a character.
Yeah.
I hate that the protagonist is just called the boy.
The boy, yeah.
That's so fucking generic.
Right.
Like, imagine if the entire time you read Harry Potter, and I'm gonna bring that up a lot because obviously for the three of us, it's one that we all overlap on.
Yeah.
Which everyone our age does. But imagine if the entire time you read Harry Potter, it was Ron, Hermione, and the boy who lived instead of Ron, Hermione, and Harry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you only referred to him as the boy who lived, that's so fucking generic.
Right. And I'm sure that they would have maybe fleshed it out if there was an actual film that was made. They probably would have fleshed it out a little bit more, but it's still so funny that, he's just a boy.
It's so...
Hey,
but
leave the boy alone, okay?
So we're going to get into the concept of the album, the story. I know you have notes. This is what I was talking about the other night that I wanted to read this. And so
I'm ready. Give it to me, baby.
Which I haven't practiced this, but the basic plot of The Elder involves the recruitment and training of a young hero, the boy, Luke Skywalker, by the Council of Elders who belong to the Order of the Rose. The Jedi, a mysterious group dedicated to combating evil. The boy, Luke Skywalker, is guided by an elderly caretaker named Morpheus, Obi-Wan Kenobi. The album's lyrics describe the boy's feelings during his journey and training as he becomes his early doubts to become confident and self-assured. The only spoken dialogue is at the end of the last track. During the passage, Morpheus, Obi-Wan Kenobi, proclaims to the elders, the Jedi, that the boy, Luke Skywalker, is ready to undertake his odyssey. The elder are a life form without bodies. Simmons explained they are benevolent but committed to the balance of opposites.
Oh my God, they're Force ghosts. The elder are Force ghosts.
And when darkness gets too strong, a hero is born to restore the balance. A number of narrative passages were cut from the final version of the album. These passages were meant to provide details of the story and act as transitional elements between songs. And then I have here to cap it all off in my notes. It's literally fucking Star Wars.
It's just Star Wars. Wait, no. Fuck.
So you said the darkness, and I immediately thought of the Sith.
Dude, so wait, is Mr. Blackwell then? Is he Vader or is he the Emperor?
Right. Who knows? We gotta
what the fuck? Sorry, I just blew out the audio. I watched the level on your fucking board fly.
No, we're good. We got a compressor in here, so we should be good.
You know what's even more annoying?
What's that?
So in the actual script, and I have very little information about it, just because some of it in the interviews I read with the guy were incredibly repetitive. The sidekick character for the boy, unfortunately his name is Tyler, but he is described as a Han Solo type character.
Oh my goodness, dude. It's just Star Wars. That's what this album is. Yeah,
what is up with Kiss and Star Wars?
I know, right? Oh my gosh. I mean, obviously Star Wars was just such a fucking pop culture icon in the late 70s. Still,
Star Wars is where the term blockbuster comes from. Like,
exactly. So it's just funny though. Like, obviously, as I was reading that, for listeners who didn't catch the sarcasm, it doesn't actually. So when Gene was explaining this album, he wasn't actually likening it to Luke Skywalker. I was putting that shit in myself, because when I read it, the first time I'd ever read that little passage on Wikipedia, I was like, it's literally just fucking Star Wars. It is like, there's a boy, Luke Skywalker. There's an old man, Obi-Wan Kenobi. There's an elder of the Council of Elders, the Jedi. You know what I mean? It was like almost beat for beat. You know what I mean?
You could almost make that about Anakin at that point,
too. Yeah, exactly. That too.
Well, and that's another thing that I think is really interesting is the similarities, obviously, between this and Star Wars, but also Harry Potter and Star Wars, which was where I started from when we were going through this.
Young boy Harry Potter.
Oh my goodness, man.
Yeah. Well, hey, at least in Star Wars, they got cooler sticks.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. But yeah, so I mean, that's just a little bit of a synopsis, for lack of a better word.
God damn it.
I just can't look at this album the same anymore.
Does it make you like it more because Star Wars is dope as fuck?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
But
so is the escape from the island him going to Dagobah to find Yoda?
I was thinking that's the Odyssey. Is him is him going to train? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With Jedi, with not Jedi, but with Yoda. Escape from the island would be escape from the Death Star, I'm guessing.
I guess.
I don't know.
Bitch.
So I don't know. We're just having fun here. Sorry for the listener if we're ruining this album for you. We're gonna get into actually why I like this album. So. Anything else about the story? I know that there was a script that we were going to talk about that you have a little bit of information on, because Beau had actually asked. He was like, wait, was there a script for this movie?
Yes, there is a script. It was actually auctioned off in June of 2000 with like some other classic Kiss stuff.
Right.
And one of the other things that was auctioned off was the original painting for the album cover of Love Gun that was done by Ken Kelly.
Oh, okay.
But there's only the one copy of the script that we know in existence for a fact. It was auctioned off for $488.75. But the guy that bought it claims that he paid $550, which huge fucking difference, my guy. But I also think it's funny that the story, according to him, having read the script, The protagonist of the story is a young man named Eric, which is very obviously intentional in retrospect.
Yeah.
Who is trained by Morpheus at the behest of the Elder, and at the conclusion of the story, Eric strikes down Mr. Blackwell in the final battle.
Yeah. Mr. Blackwell, which we'll get to him in the tracklist breakdown. Anything else that you want to touch on in regards to the story, the script?
Nope, that's pretty much all I really got. Like I said, the interview gets pretty repetitive about the script and everything.
Yeah.
But Eric is supposed to be like a normal high school kid.
Right.
Basically from America.
Yeah.
And is found by Morpheus and taken to the island where the Elder reside and, presented to the Order of the Rose. So,
man. All right. What an absolute, just behemoth of a first, section for us.
Good Lord.
We got through it, though. That's all that matters. So I'm sure we'll touch on some more things that we may have missed, throughout the rest of the episode. But that is pretty much all we have for the, the recording, the production, the history, the behind the scenes, whatever you want to call it, the story of Music from the Elder. And we're going to talk more about that in the tracklist breakdown. But before we do that, we do have to get into the album artwork breakdown. We will be right back here on Classic Kiss, presented by the Soundcheck.
How's that for a starter? How cool is this?
And we're back here on Classic Kiss, presented by the Soundcheck. My name is Garrett, and of course, along with my two co-hosts, we've been breaking down Music from the Elder. We got Tyler.
What's up, everybody?
And Beau. I like that.
What's up, guys?
So we are getting into the album artwork breakdown of Music from the Elder, released in 1981. We had a very extensive segment, behind the production, the behind the scenes, the history, all of that different stuff, the recording of the album. But now we are going to be talking about the album artwork, one of our favorite sections, to be honest, because Kiss has a lot of great album artwork covers. So this is the first album artwork to not feature an image of the group in any capacity. However,
debatable.
It's debatable, at least in terms of showing their faces or showing costumes or some,
or them as a whole, even.
Exactly. So you're not getting your classic Kiss, haha, pun intended. You're not getting your classic Kiss album cover where you get to see like their makeup or anything like that. So this is a very, this is a departure from the normal, which again, this album in many ways is a changing of not necessarily the guard, but it's just evident of times are changing for the band in many different ways. So, like I said, not to feature an image of the group, whether it was on the front cover, in the gatefold, which the gatefold is, an album that opens up almost like a book, and it's like got a bunch of stuff inside, like, liner notes, obviously, like that, but also additional artwork, whatever you want to call it. Ty, I know you have some interesting information. I'm going to kind of describe the album artwork real quick. You have a door. It's brown. It's got, some of those looks like iron rivets or like little nails or whatever you want to call them that are in the door. A very Gothic Celtic style door. Yes. It looks like. It's got a door knocker on it, which I'm not exactly sure what the name is for that. It's probably just a door knocker.
I believe so. Yeah.
One of those that's like, it's like a brass ring and you can clack, clack, clack to ring on the door. It's like a, an early prototype doorbell, we'll call it. Anyways. And then it has a hand that is reaching for it. I'm guessing the hand is supposed to be the boy.
Yes.
If I had to guess. And then the brass ring that is the door knocker down at the very bottom of it, it has a rose. So I'm guessing it's him going to talk to the Council of Elders, which is from the Order of the Rose, correct?
Yes, they are the head of the Order of the Rose.
Yes. So this is very interesting, artwork. And in terms of the hand, I know you got some information, Ty.
Yeah, so there's a lot of debate over whose hand it actually is, which is incredibly odd that we can't just agree on a hand. But originally, apparently, it was supposed to be Paul. And there is some evidence to support the fact that it may actually be Paul's hand. Paul has said that he, a couple days before the photo shoot for the album cover, smashed his hand in a door and like hurt one of his fingers. So obviously, if that is the case, then his hand is not usable for that purpose. I know there's been some discussion from Bill Coyne about who it could have been. And there is even a photo that was leaked online that shows that it is Paul standing there in a robe reaching towards the door. But obviously we don't have confirmation if that is the final photo that was used, which is why we are kind of alleging like it is kind of the first to not feature the band in a capacity on the cover, but it's also in a weird way not.
Yeah, because if that is his hand, then technically he's in the album artwork.
Right.
But, yeah, so just very interesting stuff. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else to say about this artwork other than I'm not a fan of it. I'm really not.
I'm not either. I think it sets the tone because obviously it ties into the concept of the record.
Right.
And I do like that the rose is present on the knocker.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm not a big fan of it either. It's bland.
It's bland. I understand they were trying to do something different, but at the end of the day, you also want to make sure that you're conveying a message correctly. And I think, like you said, the rose on there, it does. You know that he's going to speak with the, Order of the Rose, the council that are the leaders of the Order of the Rose. But Orders of the Rose, the Order of the Rose. But, other than that, it's bland and it doesn't have it just doesn't ring that bell for me. You know what I mean?
It doesn't knock that door for
God
you.
damn it. I was going to say that too. Thank you. That was fantastic. We both looked at each other. We're like, oh shit.
Yeah. I was like, I don't stumble over this because if you do, he could have done it better.
Fantastic. What do you think about it, Beau?
I do like the door knocker. I like the rose on it. I think the door would have been like halfway open, showing like the elders.
Yeah, like a peek into it or something.
Better.
That'd be cool. All right, I get what you're saying. Like kind of the door halfway open, getting a little bit more of the story of what he's trying to go for. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I do kind of like a certain vibe about it because like I read a lot. Most of what I read is like swords and sorcery fantasy or like horror. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it strikes at me specifically.
Yeah.
I think they did a decent job of attempting to give you information with it that you kind of need to be sold on the point. It's just bland.
Right. And one thing that's actually really cool, though, what you were sharing with us, before we hopped back on here to start recording again for this segment was the fact that you've actually seen this door in person. Yeah,
the door does exist. It is a real structure. There is a mini golf course in the Rio Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. And around like the sort of, for lack of a better term, the like staging area where like, you go in, you buy the tickets and everything, they sell their merchandise. In that area, there is a absolute metric fuck ton of KISS memorabilia and like instruments. They have one of Ace's custom Les Pauls in there.
Oh, that's badass.
They've got a ton of Paul's custom shit, all his different stuff. They have a ton of Gene's custom basses. They have one of the stage used drum sets that my understanding was that it was from the reunion tour. So it is potentially, if that is true, one of the drum sets that was used by Peter Criss, which I think is fucking awesome. The Porsche that we had mentioned that the band gifted Eric when he joined the band is there. I've stood in front of that. That's also cool. But yes, the door is there. I have a picture of me in front of the door.
That's awesome.
It is such a cool fucking sight. Just like I said, it's a bland album cover, but it's cool to know that it's there and it's real and it still exists.
Yeah, exactly. But real quick, I want to get into the ratings that we have for this because we don't want to spend too much time on the album artwork. So, Beau, I'm going to start off with you. Out of 10, what would you rate this?
A 2.
A 2. Okay, there you go. Ty?
I agree with you completely. I'm giving it a 2.
I'm going to give it a 2 as well. I originally had it in my notes as a 1, but then I was looking at it and I do like the touch of the rose on there.
Yeah.
And it does tell a little bit of a story. You can look at it if you've listened to the album. It's one of those things where you listen to the album and then you go back and look at the artwork and you're like, okay, this is the boy. He's about to talk with the Council of the Elder. There's the rose. And that part's kind of cool to me. So I agree. I'd have to give it a 2 out of 10. But other than that, obviously, that's very low. Probably one of our lowest. If I had to guess for album artworks, I can't remember what we gave all the other ones.
I am actually positive this is our lowest. So far.
think that's going to wrap it up for the album artwork here for this section of music from the Elder. So stay tuned, because we are going to be continuing with our track list breakdown, and it's going to be a doozy. It's going to be a little bit of a long one because we got lots to talk about.
Especially in order to get through this story.
Yeah.
And kind of give us, a proper breakdown of what we're getting of the story on this record.
Yes.
Yeah, this is going to be a behemoth.
Yes. So bear with us as we get through this track list. We'll be right back.
All right, here's something comes off. No, not the Oath. How many people here own the Elder? Whoa.
And we're back here on Classic Kiss, presented by the Soundcheck. My name is Garrett. I got my two co-hosts with me, Tyler and Beau. And we are going to be breaking down the track list for music from the Elder, released in 1981. We've been talking lots about it, and we are finally to the track list. And just for you, those of you at home, we are going to be going through this in the original intended order, not the original release order, but the intended order, which is what it is on all streaming platforms. The one that actually tells the story, the narrative,
in a more cohesive way. And obviously, like you said, this is how it is on all the streaming platforms. And this has been the track release order since the 1997 remasters of the record.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to go ahead and start off with track number 1, which is Fanfare, written by Paul Stanley and Bob Ezrin. And very interesting, opening track. It is not really, your classic Kiss opener, which is, usually just balls to the walls.
2 records in a row, they fucked that up.
Yeah, exactly. And this one is an instrumental. It's very atmospheric to begin with, but then it kind of just becomes an orchestral instrumental. And it has this refrain that we're going to hear throughout the rest of the album, which is the do 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 do.
Yeah,
it's that "I am just a boy" refrain is what I like to call it.
Yeah,
and I think it's really cool that it's you get introduced with that, and you hear that throughout the rest of the album. And I talked with Tyler about this, but especially throughout the rest of the album, it plays at certain parts that I think it's supposed to serve as a reminder of this is just a boy. Anytime in those songs that it appears, it's almost like it appears in a spot where it's like trying to remind the listener that this is just a boy and he's trying his hardest to be a man, become the thing that the Elder want him to be. You know what I mean?
It also serves that narrative through line of like connecting the songs together in a sense.
Yes, absolutely. It really attempts to build a scene, I think, because there's some dialogue in here, right?
Is there?
I didn't think there was. Okay, for some reason, I think I'm getting it confused with obviously the finale, but I thought there was some type of dialogue, but I guess not.
Because I think for the most part, this song really just serves to set the tone.
Yes. Okay.
And kind of be that like prologue for the story, if that makes sense.
Any other comments on this that you guys want to pull out, or?
I really don't have a whole lot. It's instrumental. They haven't really done a whole lot of instrumentals to this point. It's there. It's just the introduction.
Yeah. What about you, Beau?
I could see why they wanted to put the Oath at the introduction.
Yes. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. From a business standpoint, I get why they shifted that around. I just think it was the wrong call.
It's slightly over a minute long. And it tries to get you into it, but it doesn't
do it for you. So with that being said, we're going to go into track number 2, Just a Boy, once again, written by Paul Stanley and Bob Ezrin. You know what's interesting? It wouldn't surprise me if Fanfare and Just a Boy were originally one track, but they decided to split it up.
That makes sense. I could see that.
Because you have that Just a Boy refrain is what I'm going to refer to it throughout the rest of the episode. But, you have that Just a Boy refrain in Fanfare, and then the next song is called Just a Boy, and it, follows that same melodic refrain. So, like I said, this is where we get our protagonist. The boy is what, we've been referring to him, and that's what he is referred to throughout the entire album.
Right. And obviously on the record, the boy is pretty much played by Paul.
Right. Exactly. And other than that, I don't have a lot of information on this other than I'm not a big fan of the falsetto that Paul does
I don't think it's their best falsetto.
Yeah.
They have definitely pulled out better falsetto.
Right. And we'll go back to it on The Oath and kind of other songs too, but Beau had even pointed out, we were re-listening to The Oath and he was like, I'm not a big fan of Paul's, higher voice on this. And I said, yeah, the falsetto, Paul can do it really well sometimes, but like you said, I don't know if this is the track to really be pulling it out on, but this song, I will say, gives me Pink Floyd vibes, especially with the bass line. It reminds me a lot of Hey You, and tonally too. It has a lot of elements, and it doesn't surprise me though, because Bob Ezrin produced The Wall for, Pink Floyd, and he worked a lot with Pink Floyd. So it doesn't surprise me that we get a lot of different, it sounds like, influences and inspirations on this album.
Yeah. And obviously that was their biggest influence, was attempting to land something artistically in the vein of The Wall.
Yeah, exactly. So that is Just a Boy. Lots of lyrics here from Paul where it's just, he's talking about being the boy that is not ready. I feel like he wants to be ready, but he's not ready.
It's the beginning of his hero's journey.
Yeah.
He's just starting out from home.
Right. Any thoughts on this, Beau?
I think this should have been later on in the track listing, honestly.
As sort of like a unsure reflection on the character.
Exactly.
Okay.
Interesting.
I got that. I
think like this track listing and the one that they originally put out, both just don't make sense. And then we probably could figure it out a lot better.
I get that. Yeah. I think from a narrative standpoint, it makes sense to put it here as like he's unsure setting out on the journey. But I get what you mean. I think that from like a plot standpoint, it makes sense to also put it later in the record of like, he's questioning himself. He's not sure now if he's ready for it, in the same sense that Luke kind of does, bringing Star Wars back into it.
Yeah.
In the cave on Dagobah, when, he strikes off Vader's head in that vision and he sees it's him and he starts to question himself and if he's really ready to do it.
Right. Which I will say, I definitely agree with some of the points that you guys are making, but I personally, I don't mind the fact that it's here because I do think that it's a good introduction to who our protagonist is. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And I feel like that does need to be at the beginning of the album, at least in the way that this story is trying to be told throughout the album. It doesn't bother me that it's at the front, but I definitely do understand those points that those are very valid points that you guys are bringing up. So anything else on this track you guys want
to? Some of the lyrics kind of pissed me off.
What's that?
The chorus just feels so fucking corny. Yeah, obviously, we get the falsetto in there. I am just a boy, too young to be sailing. Like I get, it's like you were saying, Beau. It's his attempt at being unsure for the narrative purpose, but also it just feels silly the way it's said.
Right.
It just, I don't know why hearing it, I'm just like, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand.
Right. All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to head to track number 3, which is Odyssey. And this is written by Tony Powers. Okay. So I got a little interesting tidbit of information. This is the first song on a Kiss studio album that was written by someone not part of the band that isn't a cover of another artist's song. And you can think of Any Way You Want It, which was written by Dave Clark, I think is his name.
Right, but that is technically a cover.
It is. I think it's a cover, but also it's technically on a live album. It's just the studio portion of it.
Right.
But this is the first song on a Kiss studio album that was written by someone not part of the band. Like I said,
exclusively written.
Yes, exclusively written. No, I mean, I'm sure that Paul and Gene had input on certain things, but overall written by Tony Powers. So really interesting. Technically, like I said, Any Way You Want It off of a live 2 studio cuts wasn't written by a band member, but that still counts as a live album, in my opinion. Tony Powers actually wrote with Phil Spector a few times, who was one of the premier pop songwriters and producers. Lots of information out there about Phil Spector. Worked with a lot of big pop titans throughout the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Little side notes on this. Phil was absolutely fucking insane. He pulled a gun on Cher one time.
Jesus Christ.
Yes. Cher has actually talked about this in different interviews. You can definitely go and look it up. Some side notes about Phil. He wrote and produced music with several artists up until he was convicted in a second trial in 2008 that of murder trial. So I, for some reason, deleted the giant thing that I had typed out. He murdered his girlfriend, or I don't know if it was his girlfriend or wife or someone that he was talking to at the time. She was an actress. Murdered her, called the police, said that she shot herself. All the evidence didn't add up. And he went, like, this happened, I think, in 2003, 2001, 2002, 2003, somewhere around early 2000s. So the first trial, he was not convicted, but then they had a retrial in 2008. That's when he was convicted of murder. In between that time, he was still working with all these different artists, putting out
what the fuck?
Yes, like crazy shit, like literally, like working with like Amy Winehouse, and I can't remember who the other songs had, like charting singles and stuff. All while all this stuff was going on, so it just blows my mind. I think that's credence to the fact of how much of a hold he had on the pop industry in terms of power. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. I do think it's funny when you said, like, you know, shot her, called the police, claimed it was a suicide. It obviously the evidence doesn't add up. All I thought when you said that was, yeah, she shot herself 12 times. And then the last one was in the back of the head for some reason.
Right. Oh, man. But yeah, it's just Phil Spector was just genuinely insane. He passed away, I think, a couple years ago, 2021, if I'm not mistaken. But he was still in jail when he passed away, I believe. But yeah, absolute piece of shit. Anyways, yeah, back to the Odyssey. I really like this song. Has a lot of shades of David Bowie pop style feel to it. The upbeat nature of it, kind of melodic structure of it too. It feels like a song that was not written by Kiss, and that's what it is. It's a song that's not written by Kiss. It's written by Tony Power. So a lot of stuff in this that I actually really enjoy. Very cinematic in my opinion. And I feel like that, you know, style of writing lends well to what the song is trying to convey as the Odyssey. You know what I mean? So what do you guys think about it?
This song is jarring for me in a weird way. So lyrically, there is mention of, we're sailing through time and space, and the rest of the story feels very like grounded, like other than, obviously there's some magic here. It feels very like sword and sorcery fantasy to me.
Right.
So having that mention of time and space feels a little jarring, but it also harkens back to Star Wars again. Mm-hmm. And like, I feel like we're just not going to get away from it at this point. Not my favorite song on the record. There is some material on here that I do genuinely love. This just isn't one of those.
Right. It's a serviceable song, and I feel like it helps build the narrative of the story of he's on the Odyssey. He's on that journey, I guess you could say, that he takes to, in my opinion, from what I can tell from listening to the record and from what I've read, is that, this is the journey that the boy takes to meet the Council of Elders from the Order of the Rose. So
I have always thought lyrically from it that he is already with Morpheus at this point.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I'm not 100% sure if that was intended to be the case. Does Gene have some vocals on this song, or does that really only come in on Only You?
I don't know. I don't think that Gene has any vocals on this song. Or so are you saying that he's already met the Elder?
No, okay, I believe that he has already met Morpheus at this point, who is obviously our Obi-Wan character,
right?
Or Hagrid, for lack of a better term.
And it's going to
I think that they're going to the island to bring him to the Elder.
Yeah.
And I believe at this point, because of that, they are already together.
Yes. Yeah. Same. That's what I was getting at for sure. But yeah. So Beau, anything that you wanted to add on, or?
You said something about it being a whole, like, with orchestra and stuff in there. When I hear stuff that's supposed to be like for movies, mm-hmm. I like the horns and the fanfare.
Yeah.
I think they kind of get away from that.
Oh yeah.
After a while,
I can get what you mean.
More like orchestra stuff in there probably would have been better.
Yeah, it definitely has elements of it, but maybe not as much as what fanfare has, especially because of, like you said, the horns. This one has more like woodwinds and stuff like that I can kind of hear, like flutes, maybe clarinets and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, that's really all I have to say about the Odyssey. I'm actually a big fan of this song. So
interesting. I kind of agree with Beau on that. Of musically, I think I find it lacking for me personally, but you know, it does kind of take a step back from what you yourself are wanting to hear on there. You know, it feels to me more like it's attempting to be just narrative moving forward, you know, sort of that exposition, and less of a song pushing that exposition forward.
Right.
But if you're saying that he's already with Morpheus at this point, see, this just doesn't make sense structure wise.
What do you mean?
Well,
If you're
I
just
think,
meeting the boy, why is he already
Well, I think
making
he
this
meets
journey?
I think it's the same thing of where, yes, you get a little bit of time with Luke before he meets Obi-Wan, but his journey doesn't begin until he meets Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And so I think that we're just missing that solo introduction to the boy before he meets Morpheus, because I think that Morpheus has found him and is taking him on that journey.
Right. And that's another thing that we'll get into. There was a lot of passages, like spoken dialogue, that was actually planned for the album, and I don't know if they ever recorded them. I
kind of wish they put them in, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Probably would have made more sense.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's
it
what
would
they
have done
say.
some heavy lifting for the exposition of the story.
Exactly. So that's what they said, is that, you know, they had planned for passages, or they had written passages that either were recorded and then got scrapped for time purposes, or never got recorded, that ever got recorded, but they were supposed to be at the end of certain songs to help, you know, further along the story, and, you know, like you said, provide exposition. So, you know, maybe that's why some of this doesn't connect to some people. But I am of the same thought of Tyler, where I do believe that Morpheus and, you know, it's the journey that Morpheus and the boy are taking to go and see the elder. You know what I mean?
I see where you guys are coming from, but for me,
right,
like we just got introduced to this kid.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about him.
Right.
And all of a sudden he's
already on
this journey.
Yeah. I think that unfortunately it comes down to just that there wasn't a lot of great planning for this album, other than they had a loose script for what they wanted to do. And obviously it's an album, so they don't have as much time as what like a movie does to be with that character, or be, you know, to explain things further. But going back to that, I do agree. And I think that the passages definitely would have helped out with this.
Yes. Man, it's so odd. And like, as we're talking about it, I'm starting to realize that I almost have a bit of an issue with these first three songs, not including Fanfare, as we move into Only You, where like the story feels, I get what they're going for, but I'm just having a hard time connecting some of it in a certain order. And I'll elaborate when we get to Only You, if you guys have anything else you want to continue to say about the Odyssey.
No, I don't have anything else that I want to say with the Odyssey, so we'll go ahead and get into it. Under the Rose, which is written...
Nope.
Oh.
Only You.
Oh, sorry. Only You. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I scrolled down a little bit too far, and I was like, wait a goddamn minute. Yes, thank you, Ty. Only You, written by Gene Simmons, and I have this as the first little bullet point on this song. I had it written down. I'm guessing this song is from the Elder's point of view, or is it from Morpheus?
It is from Morpheus. Okay. Gene is playing Morpheus.
Gotcha. That makes a lot more sense.
Yes. Okay. And that is actually my biggest issue, is that we get the uncertainty from the boy in, obviously, Just a Boy.
Right.
And then we move into the Odyssey, where he and Morpheus, if we are correct, have left home and they're going on this journey now. But then we don't, unless I'm just not remembering the lyrics of the Odyssey well enough, we don't get any more of that uncertainty from the boy towards Morpheus.
Yeah.
So now, obviously, the song is Morpheus telling the boy, it's only you. You're the only one that can do this. You are, and I hate this fucking lyric, you are the man child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just, like the way it sounds like he's saying man child.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a pejorative or something.
Yeah, which obviously is now a term, but like, I'm assuming it probably wasn't back then. It feels silly.
Yeah.
But I like this song though. I think it does a good job of setting the tone of like how serious Morpheus is and how serious this quest is.
Right. And I think that musically speaking, I want to get into this real quick. It has a lot of similarities to Naked City from Unmasked, in my opinion.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
It's like it sounds like it could have been a song off of Unmasked or even Dynasty, in my opinion. Another thing that I really like is it has a part. Or one of the parts of it is it goes doom bana bana boom bana bana boom, and that part specifically reminds me of a little bit of Naked City.
I can definitely hear that in the way you're describing it.
And then there's a part towards the end of this song, maybe the bridge, that sounds a little like the breakdown before the guitar solo kicks in on Unholy, which is the boom 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 boom.
Interesting.
You know, if you go back and listen to it, it has that same kind of little breakdown, like groove section, as I like to call it. That you know, for Unholy is the part, there's like a little breakdown section right before the guitar solo comes in that Bruce does. But so just it's this. One thing that I always love about going back and listening to these songs is hearing like, oh, they kind of took like this little section from this song and like repurposed it for this song, you know, like they're drawing from their own, you know, inspirations and their own influence and their own writings to like kind of create something else. Like you can see some habits in there, I guess you could say,
right,
of their songwriting process. So other than that, musically, I love this song. I think it's great. And I don't really think that I have a lot of complaints with it. I think it's a pretty solid song.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. And I think some of the cadence on the vocals here is really interesting compared to the melody of the instrumental. And it's almost disjointed in a way that doesn't feel jarring. And it's something you don't generally get from Kiss. So it was something I kind of thought was really cool.
Absolutely. Anything you want to say, Beau?
Musically, I do like this song. It's a good one. Very solid. And it's going to sound like I'm just picking apart this order of the track listing. I promise you, I'm going to do that a lot. It doesn't fucking make sense.
It adds to the conversation.
Yes,
you know?
Absolutely.
This one almost feels like it should have went before The Boy. To me.
I can understand why you would say that.
I get that. Yeah.
It was like you meet Morpheus at this point, or he meets the boy. Mm-hmm. And he's explaining why he's the one that should be going on this journey.
Right. The way that I always looked at it was that they're on the Odyssey and this is him and Morpheus, like not bonding, but just, you know, like getting to know each other a little bit. And so the boy is, you know, just trying to tell him, he's like, you know, I don't know if I'm up for this, but then Morpheus is like, no, only you can do this because.
Right.
And so like, I feel like this is happening on the Odyssey. So that's why I don't have an issue with where it is in the track listing, but that
yes, I agree with you. I think that's a good point. But yeah, like you were saying, obviously, you know, we do get some vocals from Paul here, obviously Paul representing the boy.
Yeah.
You know, I can't believe this is true. Why do I listen to you?
Right.
If I'm all that you say, why am I still so afraid? You know, it's him still attempting to counterbalance that fear with like being told you're the guy.
Him. Yeah, he's kind of reassuring him, but also like being like, hey, dude, like you have to live up to this.
Yeah. I almost feel like you should flip this one and Just a Boy. It'd make a little bit more sense to me.
Okay.
I get it.
Because you have that little self-doubt there, and then it goes into Just a Boy.
Right. And that would actually make sense because if you put Only You in front of the Odyssey, you could still technically consider them being on the Odyssey, but then it goes into the Odyssey where he's talking about traveling through time and space, all this different stuff. And then it gets into him saying, you know, I am just a boy. Maybe he's starting to have doubts. He's like, you're putting all this pressure on me, so I'm just a boy, which he kind of already does in Only You.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's really an interesting point. I like that you brought that up.
Yeah. And I think that almost, like, obviously, you know, we get some of it here near the end of the song with Paul's vocal as the boy, but I think it plays well the way you are picturing the structure of the story, Beau, of if we go into Just a Boy and then go into Under the Rose, it almost helps reinforce in Under the Rose, like how they're hammering, like, you gotta be fucking ready. You gotta live up to this. You have to be sure.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, I get it. I think it works either way. Honestly, I can get what you mean, but I like this song so much that I like it where it is for the way it tells the story.
Right. Yeah. I mean, other than that, I don't really have anything else for this song other than I really do enjoy it. And if you guys have anything else you want to add in,
I got nothing.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to track number 5, which I gave a sneak peek of. And this is Under the Rose from Eric Carr and Gene Simmons. We finally get our first Eric Carr writing
Our
credit.
baby boy.
Yes, finally. And I think that you were bringing this up, actually, and we can talk about it more, especially in this song and throughout the rest of the album. But you kind of related Eric Carr to being in,
He's kind of in the shoes of the boy.
Yeah.
In real life, in this time period where he's almost being accepted into something bigger and, being told like, this is big shit. You got to be ready.
You got big shoes to fill. You got, and you're going to have to sacrifice a lot to be with us because everybody knows Kiss, when they tour, they fucking tour.
Exactly.
Which I really liked that, because we were talking about it the other night and I was like, that's something I never even thought of,
And so Paul has historically referred to this song as Eric's song for more than just obviously the fact that, he helped co-write it, but because it kind of speaks almost about him in an interesting way.
Right.
But Eric does the acoustic guitar on this song. Yeah. Which I think is super fascinating.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. He played the acoustic guitar on this song. The fact that, one of his first songwriting appearances is obviously songwriting. Drummers can write songs, but when you think about writing songs, you don't usually think about the drums being the thing that's written. It's usually like how the song is going to be structured in terms of lyrical performance, lyrics themselves, and stuff like that. But it's cool that the drummer is playing acoustic guitar on the song that, he helped write.
I love it. And
that's just such a cool thing to me. Another song from the elder's point of view, this time stating what is required of the boy. And to me, acts as sort of an initiation. You know what I mean? Is this also from the point of Morpheus, or do you think this is more from the elders in general?
It is both. So the chanting is, I believe, intended to be from the elders to the boy.
And what are those lyrics again for the chants? I can't remember.
So the first one is, loneliness will haunt you. Will you sacrifice? Do you take the oath? Will you live your life under the rose?
Yeah.
I love it so much,
dude. Listen, man, I
love it so much. I get goosebumps
for all the shit. Song. Yeah. For all the shit that Kiss gets about dumb, goofy lyrics, this shit slaps.
It's so fucking good.
So good. So goddamn good. This is, we've been talking about it, but the hero's journey that the boy is on, you get a lot more information about what he's going through and what he's about to go through and what is required of him. I get a lot of Pink Floyd vibes from this song as well, which isn't surprising, again, considering Ezrin's involvement with, Pink Floyd. Ace does bass on this and lead on this.
Yes. I do think it's also super fascinating that typically whenever we hear either a bass line written or obviously written and then played by Ace, typically it follows the melody from the guitar or, which isn't a bad thing.
Right.
There are plenty of great songs not written by Kiss that do the same thing. Cowboys from Hell by Pantera being a very good example.
Right.
But I think it's interesting that this song the bass line does not follow the guitar melody. It is more of a stereotypical bass line where it's bridging the melody.
Yes, yeah. It's a lot more drawn out, sustained bass notes. It's not just a boom, 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 or it's not just playing the single note of what the bass note of the chord is. You know what I mean? There's a lot. It's flourishes a little bit, if that makes sense. I really do enjoy that too. But I really enjoy the song in general, especially the solo. It has a kick-ass solo, in my opinion. I really enjoy the solo, which Ace does play, and that's really all I can think about. Beau, did you want to mention anything about this song? Or
no, actually, I love this one.
So, yeah, I love exactly. This one. It's one of those songs where it really is, in my opinion, one of the strongest songs on the entire album. And it just great from top to bottom.
Yeah, and I love the more subdued guitar solo because obviously, not necessarily what Ace is really known for.
Right.
And so, the guitar solo is very subdued. It fits that somber, heavy mood.
Yeah.
And, I like some of the laid back and, kind of tricky elements of it,
Yeah.
as opposed to just like, I'm going to go rip it.
Yeah. And it's got a little bit of, I'm not going to say nuance, but it's not 4/4 time. It's 3/4 time. It's a waltz because it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I just like that. I love the 3/4 time signature. And I think that time signature to this song lends itself so well. I think it's really, really cool. So anything else you guys want to talk about real quick, or are we good to move on?
I just love this song. It was the first song off this record that grabbed me.
Right. Anything else?
Nope.
Gotcha. All right, we're going to head on to track number 6, which is Dark Light, written by Ace Frehley, Anton Fig, Lou Reed. That is a name that, I didn't really expect to come upon when writing about this or, taking notes about this album. And then Gene Simmons as well with the writing credit. So this is Lou Reed's first appearance on a Kiss song. Also, random Anton Fig appearance. So I'm guessing this may have been written with Anton Fig back in the Dynasty days, or Unmasked days, I should say, because his Torpedo Girl, is that off of Dynasty or Unmasked?
Unmasked.
Okay, so that would make sense because like you were saying, I don't know if you mentioned it on the pod earlier or if it was off mic, but it does have that Torpedo Girl feel to it, especially like, how did you say it? Like,
it kind of takes a little bit less of that like interesting weirdness of the Torpedo Girl riff and kind of like tones it back a little, but gives it a little bit of
Right. Yeah. And it feels like, on Unmasked, we talked a lot about the production and how clean it was. It feels like they kind of got their balls back in terms of like that grittiness on some of the songs here. Like the distortion sounds better. It sounds more full, in my opinion, than what what Unmasked did overall as an album. So maybe that lends itself to why you said it has a lot more to it. So a lot more oomph. But I fucking love this track. To be honest, Ace does bass on this track as well. I think I have a question mark there, so I'm not exactly sure. I tried to look it up on Wikipedia or online, and it doesn't really say. But other than that, Dark Light is really just another song where it's like, hey, you're gonna have to deal with a lot of dark shit if you want to bring balance to the Force. As we keep making Star Wars references. But Beau, you got anything you want to say?
It's gonna be a weird take. This probably should have opened it.
Huh?
Interesting, kind of setting the stage of the threat.
Yeah.
The threat, then you meet the boy, then you go on the journey.
I actually
Just to kind of set the
that's a
stage.
good
I
fucking
like where
point.
you're coming from with that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that's a good fucking point, man. Because I do feel like this does not necessarily seem out of place, but if anything, that actually brings up a fucking great point, Beau, because holy shit, I just like kind of made this connection in my mind. They were so, set on having a rock song as a single and as the opening track, the label was,
Right.
put this one at the fucking beginning, and that's perfect because you set the tone of, okay, there's some shit that's fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we need somebody to get us out of this.
Yeah.
This would be a perfect song because it's got that hard rock feel to it. You know what I mean? It's almost got the same vibes as what Unmasked did, and a little bit of Dynasty, which I guess maybe, if somebody would have heard this song and been like, oh, it kind of sounds like some shit off of Unmasked, then they maybe not, maybe they wouldn't continue with the album. But either way, like, I think that this would have been a lot better as the opening song for the I'll call it the label release, because they're the ones that, fucked up the song order. This would have been a lot better than The Oath, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I get why it's put here, because you're almost balancing the like heavy reinforcement of like, you got to be ready, like you are who you are. You have to be that guy
Right.
in Under the Rose, with the immediate juxtaposition of, hey, this is what's waiting for you. This is that opposing force that you have to be able to overcome.
Right.
So I get why they put it here, but I like what you're saying. I
No,
really
yeah.
think at the front of the record, this sets the stage of like, we're in deep shit.
Yeah. Like maybe have Fanfare still be the opener, but then go straight into this. So it's like, oh, everything's pretty. And then slowly, no, it's a Dark Light. And then it goes into I Am Just a Boy, or we were talking about Only You. could be popped in there. You know what? Fuck it. Let's come up with our own track list and make this even better.
That's what I'm doing right now. I swear to God.
I like that, Beau. But anything else you guys want to talk about in regards to this song?
I like the guitar solo a lot. Typical Ace guitar solo,
Yeah.
you know. I think the lyric and delivery of this song is a little silly.
Yeah.
You know, especially the way it goes from like almost kind of an uninterested, you know, like the beginning, look out.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, because that first line, look out, there, because there's something wrong. And then he goes into almost like a spoken word and you don't know what it is.
Yeah. It's like they were trying to do something cool and it didn't really.
I think
Or
it's
creative.
fun. I think it's a good experiment. I just think it came off a little silly.
The execution wasn't there.
Yeah.
Going back to the guitar solo, I love the guitar solo at the beginning. This might be a little bit of a hot take. I think that it overstays its welcome.
Interesting.
I think it quickly just overstays its welcome because there's just a point where it feels like it's the point where you hear nothing but the guitar and the drums, no bass, nothing else in the background. It's just guitar and the drums. And it's like a little, just little breakdown section where he's just doing a and I'm like, all right, this is wrap it up. You know what I mean? I don't know if they did that just to, you know, make Ace happy and be like, here, you can do whatever you want on this solo or something like that. But other than that, I like the beginning of the solo and like the first half, but then that second half, I feel like it does just overstay its welcome. So.
Gotcha.
All right. Anything you wanted to say, Beau, before we head on to the next one?
Nope, I've said my piece.
All right. We're going to go to track number 7, A World Without Heroes, which, of course, this was the single off of side B. And if this were to be released today, I think it still would probably be the first single or the first track off of side B, I should say. So I'm not sure exactly how it would all, you know, lay out time wise. This is written by Paul Stanley, Bob Ezrin, Lou Reed, and Gene Simmons. What a hell of a fucking lineup for a song.
No shit, dude.
Just absolutely crazy, in my opinion. Like I said, another song with Lou Reed, just such an interesting collaboration. I'm not the biggest fan of this song. I will say the lyrics are pretty solid. I don't think that the lyrics are the thing that holds it back. But I do enjoy it much more on Unplugged. And Paul does the guitar solo on this song from what I've read.
Yes, I am almost positive that's correct.
So I don't really have much to say about this. I feel like this song, it's not out of place on the album, but it's just weird. Like, it's almost like they're like in context of the album, you're going through the story of this guy. And then a narrator comes in out of nowhere and he's like, so a world without heroes this is what it would look like. You know what I mean?
Well, I've always interpreted that as Morpheus showing the boy, this is the world if Blackwell wins.
Oh my gosh. Now that you say that, I keep forgetting that Gene is playing the role as Morpheus.
Yes.
And that makes a lot more sense in here.
Yeah. And so after being presented with the dark light in the last track, and, you know, this is what is awaiting us.
Yeah.
I have always taken this song to be this is what happens if the bad guys win.
Right. Okay.
You know, and so like this is meant to be that reinforcement moment for the boy of like,
yeah,
you have to do it.
It's that reminder. It's that constant like, hey, you know, this is what's at stake. You know.
Yes.
Beau, it looked like you were gearing up to say something.
Dude,
where are we moving this one?
The moment you said that, I changed where I was going to put it.
Okay.
Because I was originally going to put it before, like, Only You.
Oh, yeah. But
to show like this is what could happen, but then only you can save us from it.
Exactly.
Okay.
I understand that. But I'm guessing what made you change your mind is the fact that he said it's like it serves as a reminder. It's that reinforcement.
I probably would still do what I said, but right. I can see where you would be like, nah, man, we need it here.
We're going to have a special episode and we're just going to have Beau's music from Beau's the Elder.
Yes. Well, and like that's one weird thing for me. I've always wanted to write this as a novel.
Oh, you should do it.
I want to so badly.
Do it, dude. Do it. Fucking.
I'd read it.
For those of you that don't know, Tyler writes and he's actually written a book and which reminds me, we got to talk about something else later.
Yes.
But you know, Like that, I would love to see that. I would love to see what you could create out of the source material. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because obviously I'd have to, expand somewhere in here to get a fuller conclusion to the story if this is a one novel series.
Right.
And not let it bloat too far. But I don't know. I want to do it so badly.
Dude, I think you could come up with some pretty cool shit. Anything else on this song, World Without Heroes, A World Without Heroes, I should say. Obviously I mentioned it a little bit. It is performed on Unplugged.
Yes.
And I mean, do you guys like that version? Do you guys?
Yeah, I love that version of the song. And I kind of wish they had done it in the acoustic set for Symphony also.
That would have been cool, especially with the orchestra or the ensemble,
Yes.
I originally I didn't like this whole album to begin with.
Right.
When I first heard it,
spoken like a true Kiss fan.
Yeah. Listening to it on Unplugged made me go back and listen to it more off the album. Fucking love this song.
Hey, there we go. I like it. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for track number 7. Next, we're going to be going into the original lead song on the original album that was released back in 1981, The Oath. And this is written by Paul Stanley, Bob Ezrin, and another appearance from Tony Powers, who was the sole writer of The Odyssey. So we have The Oath, and it's a solid song. Definitely, in my opinion, the heaviest so far, at least in musically wise, the chugga chugga chugga, that we had brought up earlier. But you get double bass from Eric Carr on this song. Fucking crazy to me. Fucking crazy that the first song in Kiss history to have double bass that you can actually fucking hear is on music from the fucking Elder.
Right.
It just blows my mind. A great song. This was a song that I didn't really like when I was going back and re-listening in preparation. And the more that I listen to it, the more I've really just come around to it. So anything else that you guys want to kind of throw in there?
I love this being the reinforcement of, the boy accepting it and stepping up to the challenge that only he is qualified for.
Right.
But fucking, I like some of the lyrics. I think it's a little goofy, but I love it still.
Yeah.
It like that first opening line, like the blade of a sword, I am forged in flames.
That is bad fucking ass, man.
I love it.
It's very, like you said, it's very not mythical. I don't know if that's the best fantasy. It's got that vibe to it of like, I hate to say it, but honestly, like this out, not hate to say it, but I might get crucified, but this album overall probably has some of the best lyrical songwriting out of any Kiss album.
Yeah. I also like it. I'm not the biggest fan of that next line, partly the like tempered steel, fire bright to the night I tame, it's kind of just continuing that theme, but like, I like that reinforcement immediately after that I fear not,
right.
He's really accepting it. Like he's stepping up. He's
becoming that man.
We're seeing the transition from the boy to the man.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. One thing that I do want to touch on real quick is this has everything in this song to me is almost a preview of what's to come in the 80s. Has lots of Creatures of the Night vibes. I get a lot of especially from the chugga 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 chugga.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It has a lot of it doesn't surprise me that Creatures of the Night is the album that follows this one, especially in terms of riff writing.
Yes.
So, but that's really all I have to say on The Oath, other than not a big fan of the falsetto chorus.
It kind of falls flat here like it does in Just a Boy. I get they're connecting through that, and it just
yeah, exactly. But I mean, it is what it is. It doesn't ruin it for me. You know what I mean? Beau, anything you got to say about this?
I don't know. I just don't know why this isn't after Under the Rose. Like it makes more sense.
Okay, I think that in terms of where it landed in the intended order that was released on the remastered version, the one that we're going through, I think that with Dark Light, where that is it's like, hey, here's a lot of fucked up shit that you're going to see, blah, blah, blah. And then, like we said, A World Without Heroes is basically him reinforcing like, hey, you have to do this, because if you don't, then A World Without Heroes is a world without sun.
Right.
The Oath is
very Dark Light, if you will.
Right. And then The Oath is him being like, you're right. I'm that fucking guy. You know what I mean? I'm going to take the oath. You like, I have to do this type thing. So that's the way that I look at it.
I see that. But if you're already putting the pressure on him from Under the Rose, and if I already moved World Without Heroes up, his response is this.
Okay. All right.
I've never really viewed Under the Rose as being the pressure, but I get why you're saying that. I view it more so as the like, they're really laying out to him like, this is heavy shit.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared for it or else you won't make it through.
They're like laying it out for him in a sense.
Yeah.
I get it, but I also understand what you're saying, Beau.
I do too.
So other than that, musically wise, anything else you guys want to touch on? I mean, I like the guitar solo in this. I think it's done by Paul, right? Or no, is this solo done by Ace? I can't remember.
I don't know now that you say that.
Either way, I like the solo and it's pretty solid. Anything you want to say, Beau?
Just wait for a couple more songs.
Okay.
I got a really hot take here coming soon.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. With that,
what are you doing to me?
All right. And we're going to get to track number 9, Mr. Blackwell, written by Gene Simmons and Lou Reed. And this is a hell of a song. And it, to me, sonically, it feels a little out of place on an album like this, but it is a fun fucking song. And I know, Ty, you really enjoy the song.
Yeah. Firstly, I hear that Mr. Blackwell is unwell. But
we are not wishing for a speedy recovery.
No. Why don't you go to hell?
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I like the bass on this song a lot. I think it has like this weird, like sludgy thickness to it almost.
Yeah.
And like, I can't think of a better way to describe it the way I hear it.
Right. And so going off of like the bass of like what you were just mentioning, very groovy, very funky. And in my opinion, it has a lot of Lou Reed influence in this track, which makes sense as he is one of the songwriters of the track. But I just, I agree. It's sludgy. It's kind of like, it's laid back a little, not laid back. It's in the pocket is the best way that I can, describe it. Very, very solid writing for the bass line. And I love how minimal the verses are, really, where it's really just the bass and the drums. There's not a lot of guitar in the verses. And I enjoy the lyrics on this one. They might seem a little out of place. Obviously, Mr. Blackwell is the villain of the story.
Yes.
And it's funny because this song, I was, talking earlier off mic about where the inspiration from these lyrics supposedly come from. I'm not sure if it was ever confirmed, but what I have written here is supposedly this song was written about Richard Blackwell, who was a famous fashion critic at the time. Blackwell was very critical of Cher,
Interesting.
And like would constantly, I guess, like list her in his top 10, like worst outfits of the year or something like that. And was always just like antagonizing the shit out of Cher. So this is basically a diss track, which is really funny. But it's funny because we go back and we talk about how, maybe this song was written a couple of years ago or something because Cher and Gene were broken up by this time period. Most likely.
I think so.
They may have still been together. I'm not sure, but I'm sure that there's information out there about, the whens and wheres of it. But yeah, supposedly this is what the song is about this guy. They kind of repurposed it to have Mr. Blackwell as the villain of the story, but supposedly it is based on an actual real person who, like I said, was very critical of Cher's fashion choices and stuff like that. And I guess he could like be a real dick too. So that's why it was like, it would be one thing if he was just saying like, oh yeah, these are my top 10 outfits, and he left Cher off of it. But like he actively put her in top 10 worst outfits or worst, costumes, whatever you want to call it, and was very rude about it. So
what a guy.
But I enjoy, like I said, at the beginning, and kind of Ty's same sentiments. I really like this song a lot. But I do feel like it is a little out of place sonically in the album. It doesn't sound a lot like the other songs, but that's not a bad thing,
Right. I have always kind of been under the assumption that Blackwell himself as a character is somewhere along the lines of like the original interpretation you get of Snape, where he is someone on the inside. He's a member of the Order of the Rose who is not who he appears to be. Right. And he's been plotting in the background the entire time to kind of undermine and undercut the elder.
Right. Interesting. I think that's a pretty solid look on it. And I think that in the context of this album, I think this song works a lot. Obviously we have to have a villain in the story.
Right.
And does he defeat Mr. Blackwell in the song, technically speaking? I can't remember.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
The thing that I have always taken it to be is that the story is meant to kind of be open-ended, where this is the first in a longer story.
Okay.
And so you get the introduction to Blackwell, you get some of his deeds, some of his actions, and then in a sequel, he would rise up and defeat him.
Yeah.
Which obviously, with whatever intended script there was, he seems to.
Yeah. Anything else, Beau? Do you want to add anything onto this?
It's interesting you say that, Ty, because I was on the under the assumption that if you have your villain, you want him to be menacing. You want the music to be absolutely menacing.
Oh yeah, I get what you're saying. Whereas this is more groovy and funky.
I told Ty this is my hot take, my very hot take.
Okay.
He doesn't beat him here yet.
Right.
And then that puts that doubt into him of that I'm just a boy. Kind of mix that, put it after this song.
Okay. I'm telling you, we're gonna have to do an episode or just like have Beau just completely rewrite, because I want to see this in writing exactly how like you want it laid out.
I told Ty I'm gonna make this playlist.
There you go.
I'm gonna send it to you guys.
Hey, there we go. I like that. I don't have anything else to say other than I think it has a badass guitar solo. It's not like anything too crazy, a little bit schizophrenic at times, but it sounds fucking awesome in my opinion.
Right.
But yeah, that's really all I got to say. So anything else from you guys on Mr. Blackwell?
We hardly knew you, but from the way they make it sound, we didn't want to.
Exactly. And with that, Mr. Blackwell, you can go to hell. All right. Track number 10, Escape from the Island, which was written by Ace Frehley and Eric Carr and Bob Ezrin, which is really interesting to me. So Bob Ezrin did a lot of the kind of like the background orchestral swells and stuff of this song, I believe. So that makes sense. But other than that, a lot of percussion in this track, which Eric Carr, obviously, and just there's no lyrics at all because it's an instrumental. But I think this is really cool. It's like a jam track, in my opinion, which I think is really cool because, Ace and Eric wrote the Heaven or whatever you want to call it, which was turned out to be Breakout, and then Eric or Car Jam 81. And I think that's, it's just cool to see Eric and Ace once again write music of them just jamming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This one is an odd one for me because another instrumental, second on the album. We don't historically have a whole lot of instrumentals from them. So getting another one this soon feels odd.
Right.
But I kind of like it in a way.
Yeah.
I think it sets almost like a battle tone and less of an escape tone, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying.
So I think the name is odd.
The way that I always looked at it was like, this could either be looked at as Mr. Blackwell escaping from the island from like trying to like retreat from the boy, or the boy is retreating and like leaving after he like thinks that he got Mr. Blackwell after he defeats him or something like that. He's leaving the island, he's escaping from the island, and this song to me sounds like a perfect song that would be played in a movie during something like that, where it's like super frantic, like trying to get out of, get the fuck out of Dodge, like we got to get out of here type thing, and this song would be playing underneath it, and he's like going through all these different obstacles to leave the island. So that's why it makes sense for me, but I definitely understand kind of what you're talking about there. So anything from you, Beau?
I think it's more along the lines of him trying to get everybody else out of there.
Okay.
To keep them from getting into danger.
Like saying like the people that are under the thumb of Mr. Blackwell or like this dark force, he's trying to help them. Yeah, I like that.
Before he ultimately defeats him.
Right. I do think this is kind of a hidden gem. I really do like this song, I will say. So other than that, anything else from you guys? No? All right. The final track. Oh my goodness. We are almost done. So track number 11. And this is called I, which is written by Gene Simmons and Bob Ezrin. I about said Paul Ezrin.
We don't need a fourth Paul in this band.
Right. Sorry about that. A pretty decent outro song. It's grown on me a little bit more. And you said you really enjoyed it, right, Beau?
I do. I do really enjoy it.
This is, I do agree with Tyler how it can be a little bit corny sometimes, but I think that overall, the message is good. He's saying like, I've done this and he's that confident man. This is the turning of the page. This is him becoming that motherfucking dude. You know what I mean? So I think it's a cool outro. Obviously it has the spoken dialogue at the very end, which I'm going to go ahead and read that spoken outro, or the dialogue, I should say, during that outro. Morpheus, you have been summoned here to offer your judgment of the boy. Do you still deem him worthy of the fellowship? And Morpheus responds, I certainly do, my lord. As a matter of fact, I think you're going to like this one. He's got the light in his eyes and the look of a champion, a real champion. So that is the last thing that you hear, at least dialogue-wise, words, lyrics, whatever you want to call them, on this album as it finishes up. And originally, like I said, on the original release of this back in 1981, this was technically called Finale, just this little spoken word part. It was called Finale, so it is the finale of the script, the movie, the album, whatever you want to call it at this point. And I don't really have anything else much to say about this song, other than, like I said earlier, I've come around to it a little bit more. I like that he's basically claiming like, I believe in myself now. I was, tepid. I was a little bit worried. I was unsure, but now he's like, I believe in myself, and, things are only up from here. So anything you guys got to say about it?
It has a lyric in it that really pisses me off near the end of the song.
What is that?
It's that final chorus, believe in me, and you're getting a lot of like crosstalk in the background and stuff, which is fine. I think it works well. The issue that I have is Gene in the middle of that goes, I want to rock and roll all night. It pisses me off.
To be honest, I completely missed that or forgot about that.
I hate it.
I missed it.
It makes me so mad.
Yeah, like that does not need to be in this song. What the fuck? We're going to throw in this Kiss song reference that, makes no fucking sense in the theme of this song.
Yeah, we're going to reference ourselves.
In the theme of this album, I meant. But yeah, that's funny. Anything you got to say about it, Beau?
Honestly, this is probably the best way to end it. I mean, he defeats him.
Yeah.
And now he's reassured that he can do it. He believes in himself now.
I like it. We finally got a song that Beau thinks is in the right place.
Yeah.
And wait, so where's the finale supposed to go?
Yeah.
Before.
Right before. There we go. Actually, it could kind of work, I guess.
I mean, cut to them, like, do you really think he can still do it now? And then the boys just, I do it. I did it.
I like that. Well, boys, we got through the track list, and that only took about an hour. So
good God.
I know. We are going to be right back with our 3-in-1 segment. Man, it's been a while. I almost said the certified ratings. I almost forgot about the 3-in-1 segment. So we're going to go and put our heads together. Actually, not put our heads together because this is individual. So we're going to go and select our 3 songs that we really enjoy. 1, 2, 3 ranked off of the album. And then we're going to do our 1 discard song. We will be right back here with Classic Kiss presented by the Soundcheck.
How you doing over there? All the way over there. Let's see those hands.
And we're back with our 3-in-1 segment here on Classic Kiss presented by the Soundcheck. My name is Garrett. I got my 2 co-hosts with me, Beau.
Oh, hey, what's up? I'm sorry. I
know you're
space.
And I got Tyler over here.
What's up, everybody?
All right. Well, our 3-in-1 segment. And this is always one of my favorites. I love to see exactly how everything stacks up against each other. Especially, it's funny because I was listening to the Rock and Roll Over podcast or the episode that we did on the podcast. And we had the exact same album artwork, same 3-in-1, exact same order 1 through 3 in the discard, and then also the same certified rating. So that was one of those episodes where we were just firing on all cylinders. We were, all on the same wavelength. But it's also nice to have, some variance, some deviation, I guess you could say. So
yeah, I have a feeling we'll get pretty close on this one, but I have a strong feeling we're not going to be dead on.
Yeah. All right. So 3-in-1. We're going to start with our top 3, and I'm going to go to Tyler first for this. What is your top 3 from Music from the Elder?
Man, my favorite song on this record is Under the Rose. I was not shy about that during the track breakdown. I love this song.
Yeah.
I get if you put it on another Kiss record, it won't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I just love this song so much. After Under the Rose, I would have to say The Oath. It just, solid song. It's got that punchy guitar riff. For the third one, fuck, man. I'm probably going to go with Mr. Blackwell.
All right. I respect it. That's a great top three.
I wanted to put Only You because, I do like something about it, and I can't pinpoint what it is.
Yeah.
But, I'm just going to go with Mr. Blackwell, make it easy, and get us done.
All right. Beau, what is your top three? 1, 2, and 3.
A World Without Heroes.
Okay. Number 1.
Yep. I is number 2. And then I'm going to have to say Mr. Blackwell is number 3.
I'm surprised you put Mr. Blackwell in there as number 3. I respect it, man. Definitely a different top 3 than either of us, because ours is kind of similar. I'm going to go ahead and do mine. My number 1 for Music from the Elder is Under the Rose. I think it's such a good song, top to bottom, musically, lyrically, the chants, the Gregorian chants are like a choir that comes in. It just, like you said, it gives me goosebumps. And lyrically from Kiss's music, that doesn't happen a lot. Musically from Kiss's music, I think it happens a lot. But lyrically, I think this is one of the best songs from Kiss, especially during this time period. So number 1 is Under the Rose. Number 2, Only You. I love this song. There's just something about it that, to me, I feel like it takes Naked City and it has that same vibe, but it does it better, and it lends itself to the story of this album, and I like that a lot. So that is my number 2. And then number 3, I literally just switched it. It was Escape from New York.
Haven't seen that one.
I know, right? Escape from the Island is what I meant to say. But that was going to be my number 3, but it has been dropped down to number 4. My number 3 is The Oath. The more that I've listened to this song over the last 2 days, I've really enjoyed this song. Fantastic song. And like I said, it's kind of what's a preview of what's to come with Creatures of the Night and some of the, early 80s stuff. So that is my top 3. Now we're going to go to discards. Beau, I'm going to go over to you since we went with Tyler first last time. What is your number 1 discard from this album?
Odyssey.
Interesting. All right. That doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. It's probably the most different song out of everything on this album. Ty?
Dude, I agree. I can't stand Odyssey.
Really?
I do not like it.
Oh, man.
It might be the only song on the record that I genuinely dislike.
Wow, man, that hurts me. Because I love the Odyssey. I do. My discard is I. I understand the point of the song, but at the end of the day, I don't really like it that much, and I don't think that it's
But do you want to rock and roll all night?
Yeah, right. Well, that definitely makes me want to fucking. Keep it as my discard. So yeah, my discard is I, and the only reason is because it's my least favorite song musically wise, probably, and lyrically. I think it makes sense in the context of the album, but it's kind of cheesy in my opinion.
I get it.
All right. That's all I got to say. That's going to wrap it up for our 3-in-1 segment. We're going to be right back with our certified ratings as we get ready to wrap up Music from the Elder here on Classic Kiss, presented by the Soundcheck. And welcome back to Classic Kiss here on the Soundcheck. We are in our final segment of the episode. This is a long episode. I am so sorry. At the time of recording, we are at 2 hours and 25 minutes.
I almost nailed it. I said it was going to be 2.5 hours.
I mean, it could be by the time we wrap it up. We will see. But listen, thank you so much for bearing with us through this episode. We're going to get into our certified ratings right now. Tyler, what are you giving this album out of 10?
Oh, that's a hard one. Are we rating it based on our experience of the record or it within the broader Kiss catalog?
Not within the experience of the record itself. That's how I've been rating most of Kiss's albums.
Oh, I'm cooked, dude. I'm fucked. I'm giving this an 8.
Oh my God.
I fucking love this record, dude.
Right.
I have so much fun with it. And every time I listen to it, I enjoy it more.
Damn, an 8 out of 10.
If I were looking at it through the lens of it through their catalog, it'd be such a low score. But I have so much fun with this.
Well,
record.
I mean, yeah. Hey, listen, respect. Like I'm like that too, because I'm going to be, giving my rating in context of this specific record only, not in the context of Kiss's entire catalog. It is a little bit higher, but it's still, even if in the context of Kiss's entire catalog, it's still not that low in my opinion. So
Definitely not their worst.
No, we already covered that one.
Yeah. Beau, go ahead.
As it sits right now, the way that the track listing is just bringing it down for me.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a 5. I think if you twist the track listing to make it a more cohesive story, it's almost a 9.
Hey, all right. I respect it. We got some hot takes for this. I think that the Kiss community is going to be very surprised by this. All right. To wrap it up, at least for my final rating, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. I really do enjoy this album and I enjoy it a lot. And I think that 6 out of 10, it's a slightly above average review, or score, I should say. I will say this: if this album included some of those passages that were rumored to have been a thing, if some of those passages were, recorded and put in certain songs to help, give you a little bit more exposition, help the narrative flow a little bit better, this would easily bump it up to a 7 or an 8 for me. But without those passages, I do feel like sometimes the story, it's not hard to follow, but it does seem a little bit scrambled. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that is why I'm going to rate this a 6 out of 10. And yeah, what a fucking episode. That's just...
What a hell of a comeback.
Yeah.
Not from them, from us.
From us, yeah. Yeah.
They didn't really come back with this one. They kind of fell flat.
Right. Yeah. But I'm glad that this, this episode, or not this episode, I'm glad that this album has recently gotten some praise. I feel like over the years, it's become a cult classic and more people are listening to it and they're like, it's actually not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
I have it in my notes here as like we get into our final thoughts, which we can just kind of get into right now. It's grown on me with each listen, but I think if they would have kept, or I have it in here, if they would have kept those transitional passages, would have been, a little bit better. But I can absolutely understand why people were upset with Kiss at this time period, but I do appreciate them doing something completely different than what they had done before, because I know a lot of people wanted them to return to their truer form, kind of like what they did with Rock and Roll Over after Destroyer. They had already done that once. I think that I commend them for doing something different, taking a swing. And like I said, they didn't hit a home run. They hit a double, in my opinion, almost a triple. I mean, other than that, I don't have a lot much to say. What about you guys?
Obviously I've said I enjoy this record in the context of what it is. Obviously doing some writing and, aspiring towards that. I appreciate the storytelling aspect of it also. I am glad we're finally through this and that we're back here together.
Yeah.
I am excited for the next episode.
I know you are. I am too.
I love that.
Yeah. Beau, any thoughts? Anything you want to wrap up with?
Just after I make my my track listing list there.
Hey, send it to me on Spotify.
I will send it to you guys. I want to hear what you guys have to say after I put them all where I think they probably make more sense.
Yeah, we could do that at the beginning of our next episode. We could just, go through it real quick. Not spend too much time on it, but our next episode will kind of recap what you think it should be. I'm glad I like what you brought to this episode, because it made me look at it in a much different way than what I was, So thank you for that. But I think that that's definitely something that we could do. Send the playlist over to us. We'll talk a little bit about it at the beginning of the next episode. Speaking of which, will be Creatures of the Night. I wouldn't say a return to form for Kiss in terms of, I would say a return to form in the sense of fucking rock. It's a hard rock, early prototype metal, hair metal, in my opinion. There's a lot of great riffs in there, a lot of heaviness in there. Eric Carr, this is where he fucking shines, in my opinion. And we'll talk more about it on the Creatures of the Night episode that we're going to be doing here coming up for the next episode. So one more time, appreciate you guys for coming in, and I'm glad that we're back doing this. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, we'll have another episode up next month, because you never know what happens. But,
2 years later.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to try.
Christ, I hope not.
Exactly. We're going to try. We got a good plan for some of the episodes that we're going to be recording. So I'm very excited for that as we get into this new era for Kiss, because this is the last album with Ace Frehley. Music from the Elder, I should say. Creatures of the Night is the first album without Ace Frehley, except for on the it's the Peter Criss, phenomena where he's on the cover, but he has nothing to do with the fucking album.
Pretty much, yeah.
But yeah, we're going to get into Creatures of the Night in the next episode, so make sure you check that one out when it comes out. If you haven't already, go and check out all of the other episodes that we have. We have covered every single Kiss album leading up to the point of Music from the Elder, which we just did on this episode. We also have a couple of I guess you could say bonus episodes here and there. We got the Kiss Off the Soundboard, Tokyo 2001. We had planned on doing one for each one that got released, but then we just never got around to it. I don't think we need to do an episode for each one.
And I mean, they've done so many since we've been away.
Yeah, maybe we can recap all of them in one episode or something, do a little bonus episode that's like 30 or 45 minutes where we just kind of recap some of them. But, we got that bonus episode. We got another bonus episode of Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park that we did with our buddy Garrett Carter. I was actually listening to that one, and that was a fun episode. We talked about so much just bullshit on there. It was so
that
fun.
One was definitely a fun episode.
It was so fun. We were talking about wrestling, horror movies, Fast and Furious. I mean, all this different stuff.
I bet I know another episode where we're going to talk about a bunch of random bullshit.
What's that?
Detroit Rock City.
Oh yeah, Detroit
for
Rock
sure.
City, for sure. I'm excited for that episode.
I'm just excited to rewatch that movie with you guys.
Exactly. So, but yeah, check out all of our episodes. We got a lot of great stuff. We also did all 4 of the solo albums, so you can check those out as well. But that's going to wrap it up for this episode. I don't want to get too extended or too long of an outro. Appreciate you guys for listening and holding on for dear life, and still supporting us. We still get the stats of people who are tuning into our podcast every week, and it's been awesome to see that people are still listening and still discovering us too. So we do plan on being back and more present, I guess you could say. We do want to get through the entire catalog of Kiss and then maybe branch out into some other things. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast from. We're now on YouTube as well. You can go to YouTube. You can type in the Soundcheck Classic Kiss, and then type in, an album name, and it should pop up there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do have some fun things planned, or ideas that we've been talking about, I should say, of maybe doing some video content on, just different things, maybe top 10 lists, tier lists, different conversations. That'll be really fun as well. So definitely give us a follow on different social media platforms or podcast platforms. Rate us 5 stars. That really helps out with us. And we appreciate all that you guys have done to keep this show going. So for myself, for Beau, and for Tyler, appreciate you tuning in to Classic Kiss here on The Soundcheck, and we'll see you next episode.